Before you're married, the devil tries to do everything he can to get you to have sex with your girlfriend. After you're married, the devil tries to do everything for you not to have sex with your wife. It's like a movie scene. I get up, that's not my effing gun, run the fingerprints. By the time I'm 10, I am an atheist. Like, I'm like telling people God doesn't exist. And if he does, he definitely doesn't like me.
It's men like you that inspire me to keep pushing when I'm having my little pity party. I had struggles, brother, but it was never struggles like that.
You guys are being used in ways that I don't know if you fully grasp the magnitude of how God is using you. And I just want to commend you guys on your vulnerability and your humility. Even in this conversation, like, I didn't know how this was going to go. Like, I was praying all morning for you guys. God, I really hope they receive this well. What if he kicks me out? I'm so excited for what the Lord's doing with you guys.
I'm just playing, I don't fight, I do pray. I only go the way of Mr. Yahweh.
It's not often I sit down with somebody and they say something that makes me think. Brother, this was great.
I love you guys.
Will you give me something to think about?
My own damn way.
I had a lot of fun on this interview.
Yo, I've been waiting for this episode for quite some time, my friend.
Wow.
Quite some time. Well, hold on. Welcome back to the George Janko Show. I'm with Shawna Della Rica, my co-host.
Hi, guys.
And Ruslan is our guest today. Dude, welcome to the show. We've been chatting behind the scenes.
Yes.
And dude, I love everything you got going on.
Wow,
I like watching. I like. It's very hard to review somebody without judgment. And I think you do a great job at being a righteous type of judge, where it's not corny. It doesn't look like you're trying to rip somebody down, and you're really. I like watching you trying to see the best in everybody, and that's really Christ-like, because you get a lot of Christians that all they want to do is show how great they are and how bad you are, and you do a great job doing that. So welcome back to today's episode. Today's going to be really, really cool, man. I think this is going to be kind of like the Girls Gone Bible, or like a Cliff episode with his son Stuart, where I think we're going to just be iron sharpens iron. And I'm excited. Bro, I just found out, by the way, you're a dad.
I'm a dad.
Can we talk about your age?
Yes.
Do you know what my mom said? And this is so funny, because I actually might have to cut this, because she's like, "Don't say that."
You gave me the sweetest compliment when you called the other day.
She goes, "Are you going to interview the handsome one, right?" And I was like,
I'll take it.
Wait, who? She goes, "The one who makes the reviews on there." And it showed you a picture. I was like, "Wow, Mom, you think he's handsome?" She goes, "Yeah, he's a very buttoned-up guy. He's a very handsome guy. I like what he stands for and everything." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so." You're a very handsome guy to my mom.
As you are.
To us, you're very handsome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I brought you guys some gifts. Can I show you guys what I brought you?
I would love that.
You're so sweet.
That is the sweetest thing.
There's levels to this. Okay, we're gonna start with the most top level, which is this is our prayer journal. This one's for Belle, which she said I was alled to call her, and this is the leadership journal for you. Okay, so that is the way I've been able to stay consistently praying, and not just praying, but recalling my prayers, is by designing that. So the leadership just came out.
I really, really wanted to drop my journal.
You should totally drop a journal.
Only reason I didn't is because you did it.
Oh my gosh.
And the reason why I won't is because it was very, very cool how you did it, and the way you did this, I actually already reviewed this.
Oh wow.
It is phenomenal, and it was so much better than how I was going to do it.
Oh my gosh.
So if you guys don't journal your prayers, this is something that you guys should get involved in. But what's the leader?
So the leadership journal
sorry, I'm just holding it all up.
It has the.
Can I open these up?
Yeah, you totally can. It has the prayer journal inside of it, and then it has goal setting, calendar, and a section for leadership meetings. So if you guys are having a meeting and you're like, we have this issue, it just gives you a framework. Because I hate meetings. Like, I hate meetings.
Really?
I hate meetings.
Why?
Because I'm like, let's get to the solution. Like, let's fix it. And that has a prompt that we use to get people to the solution. So if you open it, it has like a structure for goals, which I'm sure you'll like. It starts with dreaming. Then it goes into action-based goals. Then it goes into daily non-negotiables. And then it goes into... And then it goes into...
Look at this thing. It looks like the Old Testament, dude. You know, actually, Moses used this to get the Israelites out, and they still didn't figure it out.
These are beautiful. Thank you so much. And you know what? This really comes at a perfect time, because something that I'm trying to be better about is keeping myself accountable. Yeah. When I tell myself, okay, like I'm going to do Bible study. I'm going to spend some time in prayer. I'm going to spend some time in worship.
Yes.
And, you know, as we do, things get in the way. Oh, but I want to do this, or I don't have enough time. And so this really comes at a perfect time.
Not if you have a monthly non-negotiable.
Yep. So that's a regular calendar. You can use that to just do a calendar. You can use that to write down prayers for people. The next section is what's in hers, is just a regular prayer journal. So it's almost the same thing, except her notes are next to there, and your notes are at the very end.
Pray for other people.
Yeah,
how many people do you know?
It follows the Lord's Prayer, right? Which is you start with praise and gratitude, then you pray for other people, then you pray for yourself, then you reflect on what you read, daily memory or weekly memory verse, and then daily non-negotiable. And then at the very end, there's
I like the quality,
the brain dump, brain leadership meeting, and then notes. So we just try to be as efficient as possible. And the cool thing about writing out your prayers is you remember them.
Yep.
You remember them because you go in a different part of your brain, and everything is digital now. And so we wanted to do that. Okay, next gift.
These are amazing.
Next gift. This is from me and my wife. Okay, these are the 2 books that when we were engaged in 2007, we got married in 2008, so we'll be married 16 years.
That's what I was talking about, his
Together
age, dude.
20.
He's a vampire. He doesn't look his right. I thought you were like 20. I swear, I thought you were like anywhere from like 23 to 26.
This is the compliment you paid me. That was
this is what I mean. Like,
awesome.
but kind of honestly, like, am I tripping?
No, not at all. I didn't even know you were like this much older than what he said. I don't even know your age.
I'll be 40 New Year's Eve.
Damn, bro, you're old.
So thank you.
No, I'm just kidding.
So when me and my wife, we both came from pretty rough families, both a lot of divorce, a lot of issues. We can kind of talk about that. But these are the 2 books, I'd say the 2 books that changed and set us up for marriage. The first one, we heard this couple speak, Saving Your Marriage Before It Begins. Kind of a deep cut. And the second one is the 5 love languages. That's a classic. I'm sure you guys have heard the terminology of love languages. We read the 5 love languages on a drive from San Diego to Big Bear. You can read it just in one drive, and it is amazing. It'll save a lot of...
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
I really appreciate this gift, but do you feel like reading these people's perspective of God could be harmful if you just don't go directly to the Bible and learn from your
Sometimes it can. Sometimes it can.
How do you choose which one's like a good message?
Yeah, prayerfully, carefully, doing research. A lot of these folks are experts in their field and they're Christians, so they're not just like somebody just spatting out whatever they think. And so it's anchored on Scripture, but it gives you more of a praxology for how to practice your marriage and building a relationship on God's principles, if you will. So
were you guys having like a rocky start to your guys' engagement?
We had a rocky start to our life, man.
I'm saying between you guys.
No. Thankfully, because we were so into like, let's read every book, go to every conference, take as much premarital counseling, do everything, because we cannot repeat the mistakes of our parents. We can't repeat the cycle. So
and are you close to your parents?
Yeah, now I am. Yeah,
okay,
yeah. A lot of restoration and reconciliation with both of my parents.
I'd love to get into that.
Yeah. Okay. Now this is the one.
This was so thoughtful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This is the one. You are from.
I'm a Syrian.
You're Syrian.
Yes.
This is from the oldest tattoo shop in the world, where I got my last tattoo. That's irrelevant to this. Okay. And this is the last one. Okay. This is a handwritten version of the 4 Gospels, handwritten
in Aramaic.
In Aramaic.
No way, bro.
In Aramaic.
These are my people, bro.
This is the oldest tattoo shop in the world is in Jerusalem. It's ran by a Palestinian Christian family, and they put this together so it's in Assyrian. So if you open it up, and it's messed up like that because I had to get it over here from Israel, and it's the last one. Like these things are sold out.
Oh my goodness!
I think they only made like 100 of these or so.
Wow.
Dude,
and
that
so
is so
precious. Does it go left to right? Like how?
I don't know how it goes because I can't read Assyrian, but it's. I saw it when I was in Israel a couple years ago, and then I knew that at some point we were going to meet. Like I didn't know when we were going to meet, but I knew we were going to meet. And so I actually got this like months ago for you, and I was like, when me and George meet, I'm gonna give him this, and he's gonna like it.
Dude, this is like.
You're such an angel.
This is insane.
Pretty cool, right?
This is insane, bro.
Now check out the handwritten part. Like crack it open to the actual Gospels. That's.
Oh wow.
Bro, this is insane.
Pretty cool, right?
First of all, thank you so much for even bearing gifts, bro. Like that, you don't even need to do that, but the fact that you went as far as this is incredible, bro. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So thoughtful, and all things to only bring more fruit to our life, which is so beautiful. Thank you,
dude. I'm like kind of mesmerized by this. I can't even put it. I can't wait. I want to jump into this with you afterwards, and hopefully we can get somebody to read it.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you could read or not, but I just thought the Syrian thing was cool.
The Syriac Aramaic language. No, bro, but I know a lot of relatives that could read this like easy. And honestly, I kind of want to get into learning how to read and write Aramaic. Could you put this somewhere high? I don't want to put this by our feet.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought of that.
Dude, thank you so much. Yeah. That is okay. You're my favorite guest that we've had.
Jesus.
Dude. Okay, so Let me just get into this real quick. So you're married with 2 kids.
2 kids.
And now I kind of want to peel back the layer when you said that you came from like a rough background. Were you, by any chance, like you had your faith in that broken home and then it helps you get out? Or did you, when you got out to build your own home, had to find faith?
Both. Okay, so I'm ethnically Armenian.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so my grandmother's Armenian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would that make you? Not a quarter.
I think a quarter. Yeah, a quarter. Yeah.
That's true. I didn't know you were Armenian.
Yeah, I always joke around. I go, I'm Assyrian, but I get my looks from Armenians.
So my father is 100% Armenian. My mother is adopted by an Armenian family, but she, I think, is like Russian or Ukrainian. That's what the 23andMe DNA test. And so we grew up in Azerbaijan, Baku, which is just north of Iran, east of Armenia. And that's a predominantly Muslim country. And it was under Soviet Union. So there's like layers to this, right? And because of the Soviet Union, we didn't grow up going to church. I didn't even know anything about faith or anything because it was like Soviet Union.
You're not allowed to.
You're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Right? And so my dad, because he's Armenian, we were more fair-skinned because my mom is Russian. The pogroms of Baku broke out. This is in the late 80s. This is where the Arzis had issues with the Armenians in Baku. So my dad was going back and forth, traveling to Moscow, working, and my mom, we stayed back. And long story short, we came out as refugees because the pogroms of Baku broke out, meaning that the Arzis wanted all the Armenians out of the land. And so in 91, we applied to a bunch of different places and we came to San Diego as refugees. And then when we finally came here, then I discovered like, oh, Armenia, you know, oldest Christian nation, deep history. And I started going to Armenian Apostolic Church, a part of the Oriental Orthodox arm of the church. So I was like an altar boy and the whole bit, like all the way in.
How old were you?
Yeah, how old were you when you left Baku?
So 6. I was 6 when I left. And my mom and my dad, I didn't know that they were already on the rocks. Like their relationship was already heavy because my dad's working in Moscow. My mom is back in Baku. There's a lot of issues in their relationship. And what happened was I end up discovering these letters with like lipstick kissy marks, right? And I'm like, oh, this is sweet. Like my mom's like writing letters to my dad. And so I take them to my dad. Well, what I didn't know is that they were to her boyfriend back in Baku. And so that was the straw that broke the camel's back for my dad. And he ends up...
You said the last straw? What did he know she was...
Yeah, he knew...
But it was that your son brought it to you.
Yeah, he knew she had a boyfriend. He had a girlfriend in Moscow. This was their fresh start. We're coming to America, new life, fresh start. And she's still writing her boyfriend. And I suppressed all these memories as a child. I didn't know this. So she ends up being sad. He's like, I'm done. Walks out, leaves. Makes an effort to be in my life, but she made it difficult. She just, my mom's always had a pretty terrible taste in men, besides my dad. And so she's like downward spiral of alcoholism. Her dad ended up, dying back in Baku. And my dad moves on, brings his girlfriend out, gets remarried. At the same time, I'm an altar boy, and there's these older altar boys in the church. They're like maybe 13, 14. I'm like 7-ish, 8-ish. And long story short, they ended up molesting me. These older kids end up molesting me. And it was very graphic. And I don't remember how long it lasted, but it all came out. It all culminated and all came out. And there was a misplacement of responsibility. And basically they made it seem like I was like the victim in the situation. The kid was the one that aggressively did it all. Like I was the one that initiated this stuff. And it was really dark time. So like my dad's gone. My mom's an alcoholic. I get sexually assaulted by these older teenage altar boys. And the church ends up just kind of like shrugging and not really doing anything about it. And they remarried my dad, which she was technically, I guess, according to my mom, not divorced. So all of this, by the time I'm 10, 11, I am an atheist. Like I'm like telling people I'm an atheist. God doesn't exist. And if he does, he definitely doesn't like me. I stopped going to Armenian church. I ended up getting arrested for breaking into houses at 11. I was on probation my whole 6th and 7th grade year. Gangs, drugs, smoking weed, alcohol, like you name it. I was the crazy disgruntled kid because I had a father wound. Like my dad left, and my dad wasn't there to protect me from this stuff. And the church hurt me, And it was just a mess, man, like a mess of a childhood that thankfully God and his sovereignty and in his providence just came after me in a really kind of a miraculous way.
That is so, I mean, it's so heavy and it's so much for a child to process. And certainly if you don't have figures around you that are able to help you, you know, process it and understand it and get through it, I mean, that's just incredibly difficult. And so at the time when you're 11, 12, were you living with your mom at this time?
Yeah, living with my mom. My dad's not coming around. Every time he'd come around, there'd be a fist fight. There would be a drunk dude to greet him, and just insane stuff. My mom would jump in when my dad is trying to fight off this guy. It's like crazy stuff. So my dad is like, dude, like, because I ended up confronting him about all this stuff. Like, where were you? Like, what happened, dude? And so he's like, you don't remember this? You don't remember this? You don't remember this? And I was like, I would think you still should have been there, but okay, I get it. Like, you moved on and you tried, but it was hard. It was really hard for him. So it allowed me to humanize him. At the same time, my mom slowly turns it around. We were on welfare for 5 years, like government, cheese, like you name it. Like we had the programs, and she slowly turns it around. She got a job at a casino, and she starts kind of improving our situation little by little. And as I'm getting arrested, she sees that I'm in Normal Heights, San Diego, which I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with San Diego. San Diego was very different in the early 90s. Like, this is early mid 90s, a very different San Diego. And so because I got arrested, I kept getting in trouble. My 7th grade year, I had like a 1.0 GPA. They almost like revoked my little probation because I didn't do the community service hours. Like, I was just a mess. And so a couple of things happened. The manager of our apartment, her name was Cherie. She's a sweetheart. We're still friends to this day. She ends up getting caught for moving weight through an airplane. Like, she's moving weight for street dudes. And she was really in that world to the point where me and her son would do sleepovers. And one night we did a sleepover at my house, and like the alleyway where their house was got shot up. Like, we were all in the same apartment complex. So she ends up getting saved, like radically saved, comes out and is just sharing the gospel with everybody. And everybody is getting saved in our apartment complex. It's like maybe like one of those like 8-unit ones, except the 2 Armenian families. Like, Armenians were like, no, we're like stubborn. We're not doing it. And so she and other people around me started prophesying. You're going to do great things for the Lord someday. God's going to use you to speak to millions of people. And I'm like, there's no God. And there's a God. He doesn't like me very much. Like, stop it. And sure enough, like, God used those people to plant seeds. And the end of my 7th grade year, this kid, the Samoan kid, ends up bringing a gun to school. And he shows it to me. And then I get called into the principal's office. And there's detectives there, and they're like, hey, so-and-so said that it was your gun. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, well, we know you're on probation. We know this and this. You messed this up, blah, blah, blah. They know me. They already know my reputation. And so I'm like, no, like, this is not my gun. You guys are crazy. I've literally, it's like a movie scene. I get up and I cuss at the daggone detectives, like, that's not my effing gun. Run the fingerprints, and you'll see it's not my gun. They're like, we are going to run the fingerprints, and we're going to prove your gun. You're going to go away. Like, it was like, first of all, why are you talking to a minor without legal counsel or a parent guardian? This is crazy.
They like to do that so you can confess things.
Dude, it was nuts. The same day or the next day, I'm going home from school. This is like the last few days of my 7th grade year at Wilson Middle School. The Samoan kid is walking up the street, and I'm like, hey, man, what's up with that whole gun thing? Like, what happened? And all I see is a blade in his right hand. And I look, and I see a blade in his hand, and I'm like, oh. And he's like, why did you snitch on me? And I'm like, snitch on you? And at that point, I just booked it down El Cajon Avenue as quickly as I could. Thankfully, he was a big Samoan kid, and there was no way he was going to catch me.
What was the update on that? What happened to him?
I have no idea.
You ran that fast?
I ran that fast, and we moved into Vista, California, which is where I live now. That same weekend we moved, and I went from being a 1.0 GPA student, finished my 8th grade year with almost a 4.0, just a change of environment, different environment, basketball. My plan was, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm not smoking weed. I'm not doing anything else. At this point, I had lost my virginity. I had done everything there is to do. I'm done. This is my fresh start. And I ended up deciding, okay, I'm going to be a professional basketball player. Like, that's going to be the path. And unfortunately, my mom's DNA didn't really hit me much. And my mom's boyfriend had to sit down and have a conversation with me about Armenian genetics and explain to me that there's never been an Armenian that's made it into the NBA.
I was gonna make a joke, but I was like, yo, if you made it to the NBA, then you know God's real. This video is sponsored by Life Cycle. In the beginning of this podcast, you could probably see me dripping this into my orange juice because I just came back from travel and I know I'm about to have an amazing conversation and I need my brain fog to leave me alone and I need to make sure that I'm super focused and I could actually speak properly. And so what I did is I put lion's mane, chaga, and cordyceps into my orange juice, and it helped me drive this vehicle. So if you guys want 20% off of Life Cycle, hit the link in my description and get 20% off. Use my code George20 for 20% off of Life Cycle. Get the shrooms to get you guys in the room. I'll see you guys later.
So my buddy Rufat, who's from the same town, he always cracks a joke. He goes, you know, if you count the Kardashians, we've taken more careers than we've added to the NBA when it comes to Armenians. So I, at the same time, started dating a girl, and it's the end of my freshman year, and the only way I could see her is if I can go to church with her and her family on Sundays. And so
man, God's been knocking at your heart.
Yeah, man.
For
so this is like 2 years. I start going to church, and it's just like a regular, like evangelical, kind of seeker-friendly church. But I'm hearing the gospel, and I'm the kid that I break up with her, we get back together, we break up. I'm the kid that's putting up my hand every week saying the prayer for 2 years straight. I then dated Jehovah's Witness girl. I didn't have Mormon friends. I have Muslim friends. This is around 9/11, so this is like when it was really, really crazy. And I end up wrestling with God for 2 years, like hardcore. And my manager and our lead driver at my first job, I worked at Pizza Hut, we're both Christian. And I'm like, I think Jesus is the Son of God, but is he God in the flesh? I'm confused. And they gave me a book called The New Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And it was by Josh McDowell. And it was like a thick old apologetics book. And I just smashed through that whole book. Like, I never read that much. And I ended up surrendering my life to Jesus at the end of my junior year and fully like gave it all over to God. I'm doing it your way. I'm not going to do this 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm not going to, do the girls and try to, the status. And I meet my wife in high school around that same time. And so a year after graduating, me and my wife started dating. She was a year behind me. 4 years later to the date, we got married on our 4-year dating anniversary, July 5th. And I was able to pursue music full time because I was like, if I can't be a basketball player, I'm going to be a rapper, right? Because what else is there if you're from the hood? So I ended up quitting my job in 2015. And from 2015 to 2020, I did rapping as a full-time thing, traveling around the country, playing colleges, playing churches, playing anything I could do. And did some cool stuff in the music industry. One of my artists ended up doing a deal with Interscope, and that kind of hurt our friendship, and a bunch of stuff happened. And so at the same time, I started dabbling in YouTube, vlogging, 2015 Casey Neistat era, failing miserably. I started vlogging my days as a full-time rapper, like June 1st, 2015, my days as a full-time rapper. And thankfully, I did the music, and I built a YouTube on the side. And so 2019 was my first year. Every single day upload of podcasts, just like this. I would go green room, sit down with somebody that was a homie, we do podcasts, and every day I dropped a clip. 2020, the pandemic shut down. I can't tour. I can't do shows. No one's paying for features. I started going live on YouTube. 15,000 subscribers at the beginning of 2020, like 80,000 subscribers by the end of 2020.
Let's go.
And that's when everything I was doing well with music. We were doing like 6 figures a year as an independent musician. Dang. But when it really popped off was when the YouTube hit, and then the YouTube just kind of exponentially blew up. Yeah.
I have so many questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have so many. One, who's playing you in the movie? That's what I just gotta know. Could you get the AC? My eyes are just drying out from.
Okay, thank you. I'm cool.
He was just talking.
I'm glad I put on this jacket.
Yeah, see.
Sorry, I know that was a whole lot. I just tried to give you guys the elevator.
No, it's nice to see a timeline.
I like it. There's so much to unpack here, man. At the beginning of the podcast, I said that you have this natural talent of seeing the best out of people, and you're a righteous judge, and that could be a very hard skill to manage. But after hearing your story about the altar boys, about your father, about your mother, about you in school, about you chasing these type of worldly desires and just God reeling you back, all I know is this, like I'm blessed to have conversations with really cool people. And it's no shock that the people that have been dealt the heaviest hand usually have the biggest heart when it comes to God and it comes to their neighbors. And I just, before I even get into my questions, man, I just want to applaud you and just give you your flowers on, you could have easily been bitter. You could have easily kept trapping. You could have easily gone that direction and play victim and be angry with God. But it's men like you that inspire me to keep really pushing when I'm having my little pity party. Because I had struggles, brother, but it was never struggles like that. And so when you sat here and reflected your life and I got to see glimpses of Jesus just shining through you in those moments, it's an honor to hear that story. And I really, really pray that your healing is like 100% and that you don't have to deal with that trauma. And I pray that, you know, his love and peace is above our understanding. And I just pray that you're walking at a level that I won't be able to comprehend, but you're in that peace and joy. And I pray that your children and your bloodline never, ever have to suffer what you and your bloodline had to suffer.
Thank you, man. Yeah, lots of therapy.
Okay, so I would love to talk about that because I didn't really know how if therapy's Christ-like. So to me, it was against Christ because it's reflecting on a bad thought over and over with somebody. But I would love to get your perspective on therapy as a Christian man dealing with trauma, getting out of it, and being a wholesome leader.
Yeah. So what happened was when the music got murky, I started finding a pattern of like relationship fallout. Not me and my wife were good, but even that, there would be rocky seasons of porn addiction and just like struggling that like I'd have to deal with that. But then I saw this pattern of like falling out with people. And so I finally was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing at my church called Men's Skills. It's like this like part group therapy, part Bible study class that they walk you through. It's from a church called North Coast Calvary down in Encinitas, California. And so I did that first. And I was like, okay, cool. Like this gives me the cue trigger, brain gets hijacked cycle that we go through. Could
you break that down for me?
Yeah. So it's like we have different triggers. And those triggers, if you've gone through traumatic things in your childhood, can like put your body in a state of fight or flight and you don't even know what's going on. Your brain gets hijacked. So a trigger for me is my dad would say he was going to come pick me up. And then I would be out in the street waiting for him to pick me up. And then he would not pick me up. Something would come up and he wouldn't pick me up. And this is before the days of cell phones or whatever. And so a trigger for me is anytime anyone said they were going to do something and not do it, like I would see red and I would just like, I would shut down and I would dismiss the person. So say like you're in San Diego and you're visiting and I'm like, hey, George, like you want to go hit the gym? And you're like, yeah, dude, what time? And I'm like, 7:30. And you're like, I'm in. And then like something comes up and you're like, it's 7:25. You hit me. Hey, bro, I can't make it. Like I would be like,
this guy doesn't care about me.
He doesn't care about me. And it would like rehash this father wound of like someone flaking on me, you know?
I like to talk about this because I've had some people in my life that I would see them as too emotional. I'd be like, bro, like I'm busy. Like if I can't make it there, like you need to get over yourself. And I took this as like, who do you think you are that like I can't go to work or I can't do something and you're going to be this upset with me for, because to me, my brain is how I see my father. And it's like work comes first, family comes first. So he would drop things all the time, but people knew his heart. It's so great that you're sharing this thing with me because I never knew that their reaction could stem from trauma, that I'm pushing them in a realm of things that they don't want to remember. And so I have to have grace. And like, I think I'm getting to that age where things are not bothering me as much because I'm realizing that it's a lot bigger than myself. And I didn't know how much of a narcissist and how ego like I am. Like I had so much ego and I thought I was I didn't have any ego. And so I'm falling in line to realize that I'm a really big hypocrite. So this is such a good conversation to have, bro, because you're so buttoned up and you're so put together that I wouldn't expect like this type of trauma to come to you. So I would push you a lot harder than I think that I would if I knew somebody that did have trauma. And I think that's basically putting me back into the realm of like people have their issues that they have to deal with. How would you go about dealing with this now? And if there's somebody listening and they deal with that issue of like maybe they just realized that they do it just because you spoke that. And maybe somebody does realize that. What was the fundamentals that you practiced to get yourself to behave in that circumstance that the devil wanted you to get rageful?
Well, I think awareness, right? Just foundation. Like I didn't know that about myself. Like I didn't, and there's other ones I could point to, but I didn't know like, oh, this triggers, like it's not like a cliche, like trigger warning. Like, no, there's an actual thing here that goes back to something in my childhood. And I didn't know that. And so I think the self-awareness of going through like a group class was really helpful. And because they did a survey recently and they found out that like 85% of people think they're self-aware. And then when you actually get them to take a survey and then how other people perceive them, they found out that like only 5% of people are really self-aware. Yeah. Meaning most of us don't accurately see ourselves how other people see us, right? And so I think foundationally realizing that, wait, something happened to me that wasn't normal, right? Whatever normal is, but wasn't supposed to happen. That did something to my brain that a 7-8-year-old shouldn't have gone through. And then I ended up leaning into like a real therapist. And then he was the one that gave me language like, oh, you have onset PTSD from your childhood. That's what that is, right? So when you're in a conflict situation and you're just like, you're this way, you're that way, that's what that is. And so getting language to it was helpful. And I'm not saying like everyone has a mental illness and everyone needs to figure out what's wrong. But I'm saying for me, if you've gone through something gnarly as a child, there's probably something there that you should unpack and heal from. Yeah. And then the healing came in. I got a great Christian therapist. And so I'm with you. I'm skeptical of therapy in general, but my Christian therapist, his name is Dr. Rudy. He has never asked me, how does that make you feel? He's never asked me. He's never said, let's relive the time you got molested. Like, these are not questions he's ever asked me.
I don't even know if I'm allowed to laugh. I just when he says stuff like that, I'm like, whoa.
No, but it's true because it's like, re-soaking into that. It's like, once you revisit something, it's so vivid for yourself. So then you're stuck in that for the whole day. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yes. And so a lot of what we work on is very practical. Like, hey, what's the eternal scorecard? Like, because your tendency is to overwork because you're a driver. You like to work. That's fine. God made you that way. But what's the eternal scorecard? Like, it's those sorts of conversations. It's very macro. Hey, think of Jesus being with you in the middle of all this, and think of like the priorities and the kingdom principles that you're supposed to live by. So it's a lot of pointing me back to that. And then I'll ask very like technical questions about like, hey, I'm dealing with now other aspects of my family, my extended family that have trauma. How do I navigate this? And how do I make sure that my things aren't being projected on them? And how do I walk through healthy habit formation without overdoing it, right? And without being self-righteous or having that legalistic at heart to things. And those are the kind of conversations we have. So I think for me, one, awareness is huge because I think most of us just don't know what we don't know, especially about ourselves. Two, if you've gone through things, finding someone you can confess sin to. I think like we do a bad job of confession of sin. Like we just, I would
love to actually tap into this. That is where I found the biggest growth. When I confess, I run to confessions now. I don't have this thing where I have to go to a priest and confess, but I'll confess to my partner. I'll confess to Reed. I'm always reevaluating and confessing because I feel in my spiritual realm, I don't think anything that I have is off of my works. I think it's off of His grace. Amen. Not just me being saved, but I'm gonna give you an example of my career version of me doing everything I can and nothing happens. But then submitting myself to the Lord, everything blossomed. So I think I can't learn the lesson or grow from it until I confess out loud, saying, Lord, I messed up here and I need the wisdom to correct myself. And it's hard at first, but once you get into that rhythm, it's addicting to like when you know you did something wrong and you could just get out of it. My mom would tell me, a mistake that you learn from is not a mistake. It was a lesson, or like,
that's good.
It was it's not something we should look at bad. But you going to therapy and going through these fundamentals to heal, did you accomplish full healing, or is it a wound that you have to keep making sure is like healed and you're properly taking care of it so it doesn't spill out onto your loved ones? Or is it like, no, we're done, we've moved on?
It's like a scar. It's like a scar. So it's healed. I had to work through the healing. I have to be careful in terms of how I navigate certain things, in terms of what's on my Explorer page on Instagram. Sometimes I go through seasons of deleting Instagram, right? Because when you have the exposure to sexual trauma that then connected to pornography, like you just have to be more diligent in terms of your own mental fortitude and consecration. So I got to be very careful with what I'm putting before my eyes, right? I got to be very careful with the things that I'm allowing to think about. I got to be very careful. My therapist said this to me. This is interesting, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of crap for this. I've never shared this with anybody, but he said something to me. He said, you need to start viewing yourself not as a heterosexual male. So you need to start viewing yourself as my wife's name is Monette, as a Monette sexual. That is your person. That is the only person you get to be sexual with, think about in sexual ways. And then when you start thinking about there is no one else, I'm a Monette sexual. My wife is the apple of my eye when it comes to that. So like little aspects like that is helpful. And then the other part that I don't think we talk about enough is the law of replacement. Jordan Peterson said that you can't just remove things and think it's going to get better. You can call out the sin, you can remove the sin, but you reveal the sin, but you have to practice the law of replacement. You have to practice healthier boundaries. You have to do something with the time you were doing the thing that was hurting you, harmful, self-destructive, and you got to replace it with something better. And so 2018, 2019, as I'm getting this onset PTSD diagnosis, as I'm going to therapy for the first time, I ended up like really getting serious about strength training. And that was like an amazing outlet because it did something with all the testosterone, right? It gave me an outlet for the rage that I had. And it also like gave me, if you can sculpt your body, you see what else is possible with just like diligence, consistency, and like tweaking little things. It becomes a great metaphor, right? There's a passage of 1 Corinthians 9, Paul says, I beat my body into submission because I might preach to others so that I don't preach to others and disqualify myself. That there's an aspect that we have to submit our flesh to the spirit, and exercise just becomes like a beautiful motif for that, where
good discipline. Yeah,
it's a discipline, the endorphins. And so like I found that as like a solace to like replace it. And then you get into like the nutritional stuff and all that stuff. You get real nerdy about that stuff, right? But yeah, so that like the law of replacement, like the law of replacement has been huge in my life of like, I can't just be like, I'm fixed, I'm healed, I'm delivered, right? In the spiritual realm, I believe that, but my flesh is still my flesh, right? So I have to be careful, set boundaries. Me and my wife have to be, intentional where we have a calendar, in terms of, intimacy, to make sure that we have parameters to, it's interesting, man. I didn't understand this until after I get married. People kept saying, before you're married, the devil tries to do everything he can to get you to have sex with your girlfriend. After you're married, the devil tries to do everything for you not to have sex with your wife. Something weird happens. And so like a lot of folks are in sexless marriages. And so like that is something we have to be diligent about. We have to, not deprive ourselves spiritually, sexually in that regard.
It's crazy that you say this because a lot of Christians don't say this, but sex is such an important thing of the relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're not satisfied sexually, it could interfere with everything else that you're doing. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'll have sex, but I'll be a good husband and a good father and a good kid. But it's like, no, I know it sounds uncomfortable for Christians, but you do got to satisfy your wife. And you wives need to satisfy your husbands. Like if you're not, then he's gonna have that wandering eye. She's gonna feel like she needs love from another man. And that's where the devil could get in. If it's a house is divided, it cannot stand. So when she goes to the office and that dude that really has never seen her naked and wants to see her naked is giving her all that attention that you used to and then just pulled out, she's going to feel unloved and she's going to make mistakes. Or if he's out and about and he's around naked women and he's like, oh, this is just my work, it's not a big deal, it's blah, blah, blah. No. But listen, if you hang around an oily floor, you're going to slip at one point. That's right. So you got to take yourself out of that atmosphere and you got to put yourself in a good one. And I think this is what we're talking about.
Law of replacement. That's it. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
And now you and your wife, when's the calendar? When's the next time? Actually, I put it down in your guys' so I can see.
You wrote it down for us.
We actually in 2 hours, so we're gonna wrap this up. Well, dude, thank you so much for opening up your heart to us and expressing everything you went through. It's cool, man. It's really cool because I'm watching you do it, and I was just on Charlie Kirk's episode, and I explained to him that my favorite thing is getting to meet people because I always go like, why did God create you? I get so excited about that. Like if I'm in an elevator, Reed's my guy and he'll be a witness. He'll be like, why do you talk to everybody? Like I just get so excited meeting this person and seeing which universe this man's in, because like every single person's in their own world. And sometimes you could catch somebody that just blows away your expectations. And I think you did that for me, man. I thought, to be honest, from the perspective that I got, I thought you were just a kid that loved Jesus, just wanted like some attention on YouTube. So he's like, yo, I'm just going to do it with God so I don't do it alone. And like, I thought that we were catching each other on this wave, but now I'm starting to learn that you went through some stuff and God's going to use your example to lead other homes out of this. And man, I really pray that a lot of husbands and wives listen to you. I got to watch a clip of you on stage and you were preaching. What's this about? What's this realm of your life?
So I've been communicating for a long time. When I finally gave my life to Jesus.
And when was this, by the way? So when was like the full deciding factor?
The girl that got me going to church.
The one that
before
was before the Mormon.
Around the same time as the Jehovah's Witness. I broke up with the Jehovah's. We broke up. I got back with the Christian girl that got me going to church. She stopped going to church. She really kind of started wilding out, and I wanted to honor her and remain faithful and like hold out hope and this whole thing. And long story short, I was going to church, but we were still doing stuff we shouldn't have been doing, and it was not a good situation. And so one day, my buddies are telling me, hey, like she cheated on you. Like she cheated on you with this other dude. He goes to this high school. I kind of had heard about this guy. And I'm like, no. And then my buddy's like, look, she cheated on you. I'm going to go with you to confront her because I know for a fact. So she, and we're friendly now, and she's came to church now. She's in a much better place now.
What's her first and last name?
I'll tell you off the record.
I'm just kidding.
She was feisty. She was a little girl, real feisty. So she ends up getting into a fight with this girl, gets beat up. And around the same time, my buddy's like, let's go over there and confront her the same day. So I go over there and she's like,
you had a wild life,
bro. This girl, she's like, face is swollen, lip is swollen, like beat up. And so I'm like, all right, fine, we'll go over there. So we after school, me and him pull up, and the dude she was cheating on me with was there. Yeah.
What happened? What'd you do?
So we come out, and I pull her to the side, and my buddy, his name's Quinn Harris Quinn, such a good, handsome Quinn Rose. He grabs him. He's like, hey, let me go holler at you for a minute. So he pulls him to the side. I grab her, and I'm like, what is this dude doing here? Like, what's going on, you know?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did she really get in a fight, or did you beat her ass?
Oh, no. She got into a fight.
Well, I just want to know, bro.
She got into a
seemed
fight.
like a cover-up.
No.
Right when I got there, she got in a fight with this other girl. Her face was busted up. Her head was busted. What shit? I seen the USC girls don't look like that, bro.
No, she ended up popping off to a younger freshman girl. She was a junior at this time. And the girl, like, put hands on her. It was bad. Okay. It was bad. And she initiated, like she instigated it. She initiated it. And this little freshman girl. So my buddy pulls him to the side. I'm talking to her. And then my buddy's like, hey, man, Antonio has something he wants to say to you. Shout out to Antonio. If he's watching this, you saved my life. And Antonio goes, bro, I've been effing your girl. I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was your girl.
Oh.
That saved your life?
I dodged a bullet.
Because you, right.
Oh, you were committed to her like that.
I was committed to her, and so I was like, so I cuss her out, right? And again, at this point, I'm kind of going to church. I got like one foot in, one foot out, so I like cuss her out. I'm like, thank you, like you told me the truth. Finally, it's verified because there's like been rumors. I get in the car, I drop my buddy Quinn off, I go to the house, and like that was the moment of like full on surrender. Like I'm done playing games. And I had like I'm giving my life completely over to Jesus. I'm doing it your way. I'm not going to be in relationships I shouldn't be in. I'm not going to, I'm just doing it your way.
And how much longer did you meet your wife?
Almost a year to the date I met my wife. I have known my wife around school.
So all I heard was God had to work on you for a little bit and then deliver you the right woman.
Yeah.
But I want to circle back to you, like helping couples out. What would you say is the number one thing that is causing relationships to break in Christian homes?
Man, the number one thing, I think if I could pinpoint the to one thing. There's a lot of things. I would say unhealthy expectations.
Unhealthy expectations.
Unhealthy expectations.
Could you give me an example on a man who would have an unhealthy expectation?
When I got married, we didn't have intercourse before, and because of the porn, like I thought I was marrying a Christian porn star. Like I thought she was going to do everything I wanted in the bedroom, and it was just going to be on. And she was a virgin, and it, without getting too graphic, like it was hard initially for her, like physically painful for a while. And so I had very unhealthy expectations. I thought that instead of dealing with the remnants of the issues from my childhood, I thought I would just get a magic bullet and like, boom, now we get to have sex and everything is great. And it's like, nah, you still have to work towards making that a healthy rhythm in your life. And that was an unhealthy expectation on my part. Unhealthy expectations for women in terms of, hey, like, am I supposed to work a job when after I push out a baby indefinitely? Are you going to provide? Are you going to step up? Or like, what is our life going to look like? Unhealthy expectation in terms of who takes care of the yard, who takes care of the cars, who makes sure there's oil changes. So I think a lot of times that we don't have balanced expectations because we don't really. There's a flip side to confession that I want to come back to, which is the positive aspect of confession. Like we confess our sins and our shortcomings, right? James says that confession, the prayer of a righteous person does much. But I also think there's the inverse of confession, which is like, what is our values? What is our mission? What is our vision as a couple? What is our vision as a family? What are those ethos around these things? So for example, me and my wife have always had the value of health and fitness. Before I got into strength training, we always were like, we're going to take care of each other for each other, right? So some people don't have that value, or they have that value, but they never communicate it. And if someone gains weight, if a woman has a baby and she's dealing with the aspects of what it feels like to push out a human and everything that changes, and then the dude is like, well, what's up, baby? Like, you're getting a little, you know, and it's like unhealthy expectations. Like, we don't communicate this. And so frustration is unmet expectations. Frustration is a deficit of, I wanted this, but I didn't get this. Now I'm frustrated. Frustration then can turn into resentment. Resentment can do really bad things to any relationship.
Would you say that that's the job of the man? I feel like the way that people describe leadership is like, I'm going to go here and you're going to follow me. But I think that has to do like more in the mental realm. Like I have what I feel I need to get done. But before I get married or have a partner, I would express to her, hey, these are what I'm trying to accomplish on earth. Does this excite you? Is this a path that you want to take? Also, like, you got to know, I will never love you more than the Lord. And I think that people have this idea in their head. They're like, oh, we'll grow together. But it's hard to do that if your roots from your foundations of life were completely different. When people say, what is her father like? What is her mother like? People are like, well, what, are you going to judge her mother and father? No, but I would like to know where her garden is and where her fruit came from. What if does her family have addiction? Mine does. Are they diabetic? Mine is. Like, so we have to put out a roadmap. Be like, all right, well, we don't want our kids to be diabetic, and I don't want to die from that. And also, like, I got to make sure I don't get fat. I also make sure that I'm still attracted to you. There's a lot of hard conversations that men don't want to have, but like, you got to have these hard conversations because the female in the relationship is not going to want to start that conversation. So you got to sit her down. Like I made a joke last week. I go, hey, man, what the heck? I got fat. Why don't you tell me? And she starts laughing. She's like, what do you want me to tell you? I was like, bro, I'm on keto or I'm hitting a training sessions and like I'm trying to get my body back. And I make a joke. I'm like, yo, I got to be attractive to you. Like you can't look at me one day and think of my old body. You got to be attracted to who I am now, because if I came home, yeah, I could provide a roof, but if I'm not providing a partner or somebody who she could confine to or like talk to or breathe with, like another man could replace me there. And a lot of people are like, well, no, that would never happen. No. It happens all the time. You want to keep your wife, fight for your wife. Don't get lazy with your wife. You got to make sure that you're still, like she always says, we get busy, but we got to make sure we take each other to dinners.
That's good.
We see each other every day. I could have easily been like, bro, we're with each other every minute. We don't got to go to dinners. But like, no. I don't got to take my work out on her. And I think what happens is a man and a woman will take their own earthly desires or their realms and get in the way of each other as partners. But when man and woman get married, they become one. So if it's my money, it's our money. If it's our problem, it's our problem. So we have to get to the solution together. We can't fight each other. We have to fight the world. And if the house is divided, we cannot stand. So the 3 pillars that we have, most importantly, is God is always above us. I lead the home, and we always, always, always pray together.
That's good.
Always. That's good. Those are the ones that we're beginning with. I'm obviously gonna fail you as a leader, and I hope you know that.
Well, I'm gonna fail you at times too. You know.
No, that's not allowed. We discussed that. See that we brought that up. I said, as a wife, you can't fail me, not even once. If you do, then I get to go date other women. It's a thing. We have it in a contract.
One of the things that might be controversial, but it might be liberating for certain people. One of the ways I initiated that in a very practical sense, and again, this might be very controversial, was that when I started dating my wife, I knew some of her guy acquaintances and guy friends. So one of the expectations I had was like, nah, we're not doing opposite friends. That's it. That's done. I don't have any female friends. I don't text with any girls. I don't go to coffee with any girls. And all these dudes that are my friends, that are your friends, they all want to smash. Like, I know these guys. I know how they think. I know how they're wired. And so that was like no opposite gender friends in that. Now we have.
Was she upset with that?
No. She was like, okay.
It's a common sense thing.
Yeah. We have friends that, like, I'll have like acquaintances from music stuff or from YouTube stuff. Lila Rose is a friend of mine. She runs liveaction.org. Lila Rose will come over and she'll be around my wife. We'll be hanging out and then we'll do a podcast. Me, her, there's guys in the room, but like me and Lila Rose aren't like going to get coffee, you know, like I think that's what you're getting at.
Listen, here's the thing that I grew up as an Assyrian man, right? Just because you're not doing anything doesn't mean that other people can't think you're not doing anything. And you got to show respect to your loved ones. Like my mom would say, hey, don't hang out with those people because you're going to make us look bad if you're going on and doing stupid things. And I'm like, all right, so I won't do stupid things. I want to represent my family, right? So if I'm with my fiance and we are publicly have a podcast, how many times have you heard stories if I'm at the club or if I'm hanging out with girls and the girls grab my shoulder, I'll tell them, don't touch me. Because if somebody takes a picture of us,
that's a bad look.
And you just made my woman look beneath me. Like I could do whatever I want and she's going to be okay with it. That's not okay. You're going to show my woman respect if she's in the room or if she's out the room. So keep a distance from me. Don't put your hands on me. Don't laugh and grab me like that. That's the type of behavior I did when I was single. So I'm not going to have that when I have a woman at home. So like there is ways to respect your woman. And I think people have this, okay, I got one. I'm still learning, right? So there's one that I'm openly about to talk about. There's one that I used to think that it's so okay that if you're with your boys and a hot girl walks by, if you have no intentions, if you look how hot that girl is. I used to stand up for that. Be like, bro, I didn't just start dating Belle and become gay. So like if I see a girl, I'm like this. I used to be like, nah, bro, if you're with your boy, I used to defend this until recently. I'm with Charlie Kirk and we're talking about coveting, and I didn't know the layers of coveting. And then I realized, I go, wait a second. I'm on a podcast saying that it's totally fine that if you see a girl walk by. But then I realized, I'm like, wait, why would I do that? It's because she's attractive. So I'm looking at her because she's attractive. Just because I know if this woman comes up to me and even tries anything, I wouldn't do anything. But why am I letting my eyes even go there? And I think this is the level of respect that I'm having. Just because my girl knows I would never do anything, because I've been put in situations where, like, if I was going to do anything, I would never get caught. I'm going to do this. And I would never. It's not how I am. I'm too afraid of God. I'm too in love with my woman. Like, there's no woman on earth that could ever do this, ever. But why would I give another woman even a small idea just because she caught me looking at her that I would want her?
Yeah.
And that puts it in her heart that, like, oh, her man, if I wanted him, I could take him. And I would be so broken if another man looked at my girl and was like, oh, if I wanted her, I could take her. And it's all because of an eye glimpse of like, oh, I'm checking her out. And so like on a podcast was fighting for that. So on a podcast, I want to say, I'm so sorry. Aww. I'm so sorry.
Thank
you. That was.
Do you hear that? I'm so lucky.
You guys are
no, but it's so true.
But
because
by the way, if I'm ever wrong and you feel in your heart, you should rebuke my actions. If you really feel like Nah, I get your understanding.
Well,
like,
I always disagreed with you on that, but I think we just had different understandings. And I think when you would explain that point of view, I could find myself putting myself in your shoes and be like, okay, I understand, because I see other guys. You have so many guy friends. I'm around guys all the time because you have so many friends and I'm always with everybody. And so I see how other men, you know, look around. And so it's like, I'm like, okay, so I could understand your positioning. And I also always knew you were never disrespectful about that. You never like did neck snap. You would just like, see a girl, like, okay, whatever. It wasn't anything.
That's a girl, I'll be like
this. You know, you're just like, oh, somebody walks in and you're like, oh, who is it? Okay. You know what I mean? So it was never anything bad. But I will say,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's the point of, it's true. Girls think differently. Like when a girl sees a guy look at her, she goes, oh, he wants me. And then in that moment, it makes a shadow on who you are, and it puts a shadow on then the person that you're with. And so it's just such a valid point, you know?
I shouldn't put my eyes to anything that I don't want my feet and heart to move towards.
Come on.
So if I do catch myself doing that, instead of preaching, well, you're not gay, bro, you're allowed to look, I should preach, hey, man, you should have more discipline with your heart and eyes. Yeah. And so I really apologize to anybody who heard that and took that advice. And also I'd like to apologize to anybody who heard that and kind of was broken and be like, wait a second, that's not of Christ and that's not of us. And it sucks being on a podcast trying to learn in front of people, but like confessing, I and you know what's even worse, bro? I embarrassed you when I said that.
Oh my gosh, Jordan.
I really am sorry. Like, I didn't mean it anyway. I was trying to stand up for what was right, and I totally took the wrong fence on that. And so,
thank you,
yeah,
dude. You're so cute.
I'm really sorry.
You didn't. I love you.
We got to put it on our calendar for later.
We do. You did not embarrass me whatsoever, and I think that that's something that I love about this podcast, and I love about you being able to share so like boldly, you know, like you are not afraid to share anything that's on your chest, because people then get to learn like as you learn. And I think that it's important for people to know that like you're not perfect, I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. We don't know. He's a lot closer though. We all make mistakes, and we're just learning as we go. And if somebody can look at you and be like, oh, you're just like me. Mm-hmm. Like you thought the same thing. I'm not crazy. Mm-hmm. And that puts such a weight off you, because sometimes when something feels so unattainable, you think, I'm never going to understand it, and I'm never going to feel that way. And so what's the point, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Nice. There's a verse, I think Job 31 says, I've made a covenant with my eyes to not look at a woman lustfully. Yeah. Right? The New Testament says that we are to regard other women as daughters and sisters. I wanted to come back. You asked about the speaking, the speaking on the Instagram. So what happened is I broke up with that girl. I like surrendered to Jesus. I go to a Miles Ahead crusade. You guys ever been to one of those like evangelistic crusades where you go and preach the gospel? So I hear the gospel. Miles McPherson, who used to play for the Chargers, does this thing. I make a public proclamation of faith. I come forward. And within a couple of weeks after that, we end up starting this thing that is going to sound cringy in hindsight, but we end up starting this Bible study called The Vessel of Hip Hop. And the Vessel of Hip Hop was an open mic. I worked at Pizza Hut, so I would just get whatever pizzas they'd give me. And we would have an open mic, free pizza, and a Bible study. And usually there would be a Bible study around whatever was happening in culture, in society, 9/11, fill in the blank of whatever was happening. Jay-Z and Nas are beefing. Like, we would just kind of tie in to whatever people were concerned about. And we tie it in and try to bring it back to scripture somehow. And that evolved and turned into this open mic, and we threw concerts. And then I started doing a men's group and teaching in that. And then wherever my church needed me, I just served everything from cleaning toilets to, this time last year, I was holding babies in our nursery. And I was fire, like holding babies while parents went. And so I just I love babies. So wherever I was needed in the local church, that's where I was. And it ended up being a lot of like children's ministry, junior high, high school, young adults, men's groups. And so what I found out when I got on YouTube was that the thing I had actually done more than music was actually trying to contextualize God's word into a framework that's relevant to people today. I had done that longer than anything else. Translated. Hey, we're concerned about this event, current event that's happening. Hey, check out the scriptural tie-in. Or yesterday's video was Breaking Bad and its secret biblical parallels. And so we walked through the series of Breaking Bad, which is one of my favorite TV shows, and we tie in all the scripture to it, right? And so I had done that longer than anything else. So I think one of the reasons why the YouTube works for me is because I'm actually doing the thing that I've been doing privately for 20 years, but I'm just doing it at scale in front of a couple million people every month that we reach. And that's kind of the unique part. So then the speaking has came full circle, where now I'm not just doing it behind a camera. I just spoke at V1 Church, which is one of the fastest growing churches in America, in New York, for Father's Day. I spoke at Lila Rose's event. I spoke at Ryan Panita's event. And so I'm able to kind of practice that muscle as well, of like public speaking and kind of taking conversations like this and then trying to, like, how can we compress the value in a 30-minute talk, contextualize the gospel, and give people like practical steps of how they can implement it.
Have you ever ran into this wall where you're like trying to get God to work with your will and what your talents are, and then one day you're like, okay, I'll just work with God's will, and then all of a sudden your talents are super heightened, all of your opportunity explodes? When in your life did you find that parallel?
So remember I told you I was doing music. 2015, I quit my job.
Yeah.
I was running a little boutique label, and it was doing well. One of my artists got signed to Interscope. So my biggest song on Spotify is a song called I Got the Juice. We recorded that in the same room where Kendrick did To Pimp a Butterfly, like the same studio, No Excuses studio. It's been shut down since. So in that moment, like, I was the business guy, and I was the rapper, and I was like the manager and the booking agent. I was doing everything, and it just collapsed. And I came to this conclusion that, like, I kept trying to tell God about my dreams. Like, God, this is my dream. Can you get in on this dream? Instead of saying, like, God, what is your dream for my life? Like, what do you actually want me to do? And I sat down with my pastor, and I talked about music, and I talked about YouTube, and talked about working with artists and helping artists. And he was like, man, what would be best for your family? And I was like, oh, no one's ever asked me what would be best for my family. Probably not dealing with artists, because you know how creatives are, right? Highly emotional.
Especially the music ones. Music is like, it's the worst industry. It's the most toxic industry ever.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it.
And we got that taste of success. Like, we got that, like, we were on the Carson Daly show.
You know what it reminds me of? Yeah. I don't know if I could symbolically, like, compare this, but it seems that was your Tower of Babel.
Low key, yeah.
Where you're trying to literally replace God, because you're like, no, work with me. I want to build my kingdom. But at the end of that building, you're going to realize that, like, once you take over all of this, you're going to want to take over the kingdom of God. And I think that's what people, like, don't really understand. When you're telling God to do what you're wanting to do, that will lead you to wanting to replace God, because you're just using him as like a tool, as a vessel. But when you start working for God and serving God, one, you become so wise, because now he's feeding you blessings. And through that perspective, everything heightens. That's why I always joke around and I go, everything that I ever wanted before is thrown at my feet. Come on. And now I don't want it.
That's right.
So this whole time I kept searching my own treasures, and everything would keep crumbling down, because he loved us.
That's right.
Because he wouldn't want it to get to that level.
Good God will keep bad things from you that you don't know you're able to handle.
Sometimes a bigger blessing is no than yes. Yeah. A lot of people don't understand that until they have, like, a daughter or, like, they have a son.
Yeah. Well, my 9-year-old is going through a screen detox right now. We just went to New York. He got to watch the Dude Perfect app. He was, like, chilling, right? And we came back and we're like, screen detox, like, no screens. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because it's not good for you. And as a good father, like, you can't be on screens. Even though it feels good and you think this is what you want, this isn't what you really want. So there's a lot of times where, as parents, I got to keep things from my kids, maybe things that aren't even that bad, in moderation. Watching Dude Perfect app isn't bad, right? Like, but you can't veg out for 4 hours, dude. No,
but good for you, because there's a big issue, and I've seen so many videos on it now with, like, toddlers that are attached to their iPads. Call them iPad kids. But it's so harming to them, and their emotional, like,
they're dysregulated.
It's so bad. Like, these poor kids are throwing tantrums. They don't even understand what's going on with them, because their endorphins are so, like, all over the place from things that they watch on this tablet, and it is such an issue. Yeah.
So we have a very limited amount of time. He won't have any devices. He's not gonna have a phone. We have a family iPad, super limited, and it goes back to what you just shared. Like, a good father's heart is sometimes to keep things from you that you think you're capable of handling, but you're not ready for. Yeah. If you're 3, if you're 9, if you're 15, keeping things from you is not bad. And so, to answer your question, I think when I discovered that there's a difference between what I think my purpose is versus God's purpose, right? And God's purpose for all of us, on a capital P purpose, is to know him, make him known, and become the version that he wants us to be on this side of eternity, right? To be the hands and feet of Jesus. So once I got a hold of, like, my purpose is minuscule in the context of who God wants me to be, And I was like, I'm just going to do what you want. And I never, in 100 years, bro, I never would have thought that I'd be doing Christian YouTube. Like, my vision was like, I'm going to be a rapper in the industry and do these things. And then I got in those circles and I was like, ugh, like this is not what you think it is. You know, this is not healthy.
And but here's the thing. This is the best way. There is something in your heart that you call to. Maybe there's a certain talent and you're like, no, I feel like God would want me to do this. I'm telling you from somebody that chased it himself and then gave it to God. If you seek first the kingdom, the rest shall come. Because it's the rest of what you need. You'll never be in need. And this is the best way that I could put working with God. Could you hold this?
Sure.
Yeah. Could you hold this stuff?
Okay.
Yeah, no, hold it in your hand.
I'm going to hold all three.
Yeah. And hold this.
Okay. I can't hold that.
Okay. So here's the reason. We keep asking God for things that we can't hold.
Oh, that's good.
We can't hold it.
Yeah.
So, but if I would have prepped myself and held it properly and learned how to hold all these things, I'm able to manage things. So you're praying for things and you're going through things and you get mad at God when he's only giving you what you prayed for. When you ask God for something and you can't hold it, he doesn't want his son to crumble down. So he'll put you through a life where you're able to hold it with ease to the point where you might not have to be stronger, but you could be wiser. Where I'm like, oh, if I stack this, I could put this here.
That's good.
So I always tell people, your God doesn't want to short you, but your shortcomings come from you not wanting to work and humble yourself. Yeah. If God says no right now, you shouldn't try to fight your way into it because, dude, trust me, if the universe can't fight against God, you're not going to be able to fight against God. But if you just go with him and you say, take my feet where you want, you might realize by the time you get there, you don't even want to hold what you were begging to hold because what he's about to give you is so much greater that you just want to take two hands and squeeze it tight.
Wow.
So, preaching, man.
That was well
cooking, bro.
That was well put.
I love it. I love it.
All right, but back to you, bro. I love this back and forth. I knew this podcast was going to be something special. I really did. Okay, so you teach couples how to lead with God and stay together. You have a podcast that you review all these things. What is the things that you are troubled with now that are on your heart, that weighs on you, and that you feel like I'm at a different level and this is the different devil that I'm dealing with?
So I've been really wrestling in terms of the Christian cultural zeitgeist, if you will, of there being an incongruence, a breakdown, a double-mindedness, a syncretism of the things we claim to believe and then like people really living out the things we claim to believe. And so I'm packaging that right now. I'm finishing my first book, and it's basically about this concept of godly ambition and how it's different from worldly ambition or selfish ambition, right? So the scriptures talk about make it your ambition to lead a quiet life working with your own hands so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders and you may not be dependent on anyone. That's 1 Thessalonians 4:11, right?
Wow, that's strong.
Strong, right? Make it your ambition to lead a quiet life.
Ah, so you're chasing the fact that you're scared that the voices and the comments and the concerns are going to dictate where you're going to go?
Yeah, because if you just live for the pleasure of man and the expectations of man, like that can derail you.
This is real because you want to do God's job and you not his job, but you want to do what he wants you to do. Yeah. And sometimes you feel like you got to try so hard, but you slip in and out of like listening to what they're with good intentions, right? Because you want to provide a product for them.
Yeah, you want to listen to what your audience has to say.
Yeah. Okay, so how are you dealing with that?
Well, I'm dealing with it by programming and trying to walk people through programming. And this is what I mean very practically. What we believe will determine how we behave, right? And so this is unanimous across area. Like if I believe I'm an athlete, I'm going to create systems in my life, like ordering meal preps that come to my house to make sure I hit my macros, like building a gym in my backyard to make sure I could always hit the gym, like doing the things that an athlete does through the processes, right? I believe I'm an athlete because I've played sports my whole life. Therefore, I've created the processes and the systems. Therefore, eventually, I will get the outcomes that an athlete gets, right? A lot of this is from the book Atomic Habits, but I think he misses the faith component in all this, right? He misses the belief component in all of this. And so for me, so many people say they're a child of God. They say they're born again. They say they're a follower of Jesus. They say they're a Christian. But when it comes to the nitty gritty of like, How do you care for your body? How do you manage your finances? Are you generous? Like, how is your marriage? Who are you when no one is around? There's a massive disconnect for people. And so I'm trying to create a framework for people through my own shortcomings and my own mistakes of like, hey, stop chasing the outcomes. Like, stop chasing the number on the scale if you want to get fit. Stop chasing the body fat percentage if you want to get fit. Chase falling in love with the process of fitness because you actually believe that you are an athlete. And the same thing with being a child of God. Like, if I'm actually declared the righteousness of God, right? 2 Corinthians 5:12, it says, I think it's 5:12, it says, God made him who knew no sin so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Right? So meaning that if you're in Christ, God sees you and you are now proclaimed to be the righteousness of God, that we're all called to be a part of a royal priesthood, that we're no longer sinners, we're saints. So if we really believe these things about ourselves and we really believe like the full counsel of God, that means that we will incorporate this and you will know them by the fruit. All our lives will like change. Not in the sense of salvation. I'm not talking about like, hey, if you misstep, you're going to hell. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in the sense of being the hands and feet of Jesus here and now. There's never been a time like this, George, where we can do so much good. We can help so many people. We can get the word out, but we could also be the tangible hands and feet of Jesus as right now, as this time that we're in. And so I'm just really like, I'm concerned that Christians either don't get it, or they're chasing selfish ambition, worldly ambition, or they're engulfed in the poverty gospel, and there's a incompatibility from the things we say we believe and the willingness to create the systems to behave that way.
I've pondered this thought, and what I've came to, like, my conclusion is, and I could be completely wrong, there's two men I only see. There's one who is broken, and there's one that's so broken that he calls out to God.
Come on.
I had this really hard time. I would judge a lot of people because I would have been like, I would learn from something and then I'll be like, well, why don't you get, and so what happens with people that have God in their life and they're obviously seeing him work is that they become spoiled to his wisdom and to his grace and to his faith, that they feel that, why are you guys not, the truth is, when a man is broken and he gives it all to God, it's God himself that starts making heaven on earth, and then you see his fruits. That's why they say you'll know him by his fruits, because God's fruits is undeniable, right? I have to realize that life and death begins on a tongue. So if I want to convert this man into literally walking in the direction that I want to walk, it's coming to the realization to myself that it's not me who changes these people. And I think that was a really hard pill to swallow, because I thought, oh, I'm doing this for God. I'm doing this for God. But the truth is, it's the Holy Spirit.
That's right.
And if they're not like submitting to the Holy Spirit, we can never get them to even experience the Holy Spirit. Now I see people that are in church that have no Holy Spirit, and then I see people that I have no idea what the church is, but have the Holy Spirit, because I could tell them by their fruits. So what I do now is I'm trying to get out of my own way, because I feel like I have to get the job done. And I think that's what you're kind of on the way of, and this will tear you up from the inside out, because if it was going to be done, it would have been done. But we have to literally humble ourselves, and this is what I've been in my head. I keep telling myself, preach all the time, every day, always, about my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And when it's very necessary, use words.
Yeah, that's good. And I think what you articulated so well, I think there's a difference between salvation and justification, like we're being saved, which is anchoring on the good news. You know, Jesus came, lived the life we couldn't live, died the death we should have died on the cross in our place for our sins, and then created a pathway. You're spot on about that. And then there's the second aspect of that, which is we would call sanctification.
Yeah.
And sanctification is like that cooperation with the Holy Spirit, right? You know the things you should be doing, but you're not doing them. And I think what I'm getting at, I think, is like there's people that say they want to cooperate with the Spirit, but they're either ignorant of the ways of God, and so then they're wondering why they don't feel like they're in the will of God. It's like,
would you find it to be ignorance or fear?
I think it's both. I think that's a great question.
Oh, okay, great. So you think that their ignorance led them to fear?
I think, or their fear keeps them from wanting to learn more about the ways.
Okay, let's break this down, because it says that wisdom is, in the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. So they're fearing worldly things, making them technically dumb and caught in their cycle of life. But then when you fear the Lord, then you become wise and you could delegate those problems with faith instead of fear.
That's right.
All right. Okay, so then what do? Do we more install faith, or do we?
I think it starts with faith,
right?
I think it has to start with faith, right? You like, when I was struggling, I came off a tour in 2018. I was like 20 pounds heavier, not good, addicted to sugar, just wilding. I had to believe that like my buddies who had abs, and when they tell me like you got to eat chicken and broccoli and go do compound lifts. Like I had to believe them, right? And what is belief? Like belief is trust and confidence that what they're saying is true, right? So I had a little bit of faith that like, all right, I'm going to go do these deadlifts, squats, bench press, and pull-ups. I'm going to go learn this, and I'm going to eat my ideal body weight in chicken and the broccoli to keep me satiated. And I did it for a couple months, and all of a sudden I was like, oh snap, like I got muscles all of a sudden. I got abs. Like, this is crazy. But I first had to believe it before I actually implement it. You know, and I think there's a lot of folks that either don't know or don't want to know or afraid, and then they're staying stuck in that cycle. And again, they're wondering, like, why do I feel like I'm not in the will of God? And it's like, well, the will of God isn't a destination. The will of God isn't this thing you land at. Like, the will of God is in the ways of God. If I'm living God's ways, I will always be in God's will. Right? And God's ways are in God's word. And ultimately, Jesus is the word of God. Jesus is the Logos.
He became flesh, John 1.
Yeah, but there's the Proverbs, and there's Ecclesiastes, and there's the parables, and there's the epistles, and there's the Old Testament. And there's so much wisdom in there. And we're like, why don't I feel like I'm in the will of God? It's like, well, because you're not really after the ways of God, and you're not really cooperating with the works of the Spirit. And so then you wonder why there's this cognitive dissonance, why there's this tension in your life. And not all tension is bad. To go and
tension's great. That's how you built that body. You put your body through tension.
Tension's good, especially in strength training, and tension is necessary. But the tension of, I want to be in this area of breakthrough, but I'm disconnected. I don't know why I'm disconnected. And I think getting people back to like a practical wisdom. Like we could talk about the supernatural, which I'm all for, but my friend Pastor Mike Signorelli says, but we have to bring people into a super practical, right? From the supernatural, there's a super practical. God has an opinion, and not just an opinion, God has commands for a lot of the areas of our lives that we're just kind of checked out. Yeah. Yeah. And the discipline is a byproduct. Like it's not about white knuckling it. It's about creating a process and a system that then over time, the discipline just becomes who you are. You know, like I get up and I do things not out of I don't brush my teeth out of discipline. You just brush my teeth. I don't even think about it.
Because you know? Habit.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and I think too, with a lot of people, and it's hard to want to change and to know that you're going to have to change. And I think that sometimes when you're collecting all this new information, you know, you're about to read information on the ways that like you're going, like that you're doing wrong. And you know, you're about to have to change things about yourself. And that's a hard thing to do, you know? And, actually, I saw there was a clip of you and you were speaking on Kate Von D when she got baptized. And she was speaking about how her comment section was, you know, it was so like negative and it was so holier than thou by Christians. And I really agree with like what you said in the ways that like us as Christians, we shouldn't be in the comment section judging. And if you feel like the person might not be on the right track, I don't know why I see this so much in comments where Christians are like, you know, talking down to other Christians, being like, well, you're not doing this, or you're not a real Christian, or you're not, you know what I mean? I don't think that your actions don't seem like you're this or that or whatever. And it's like, we should be giving each other so much grace because you don't know where that person is in their walk. And you have to remember that this person is brand new to the relationship with Jesus. So they're not going to have everything figured out. They're not going to know exactly how to go about it. But if we're encouraging and if we give with like love and with grace, then we're only encouraging the person to step further into it versus like being so harsh on them. And then they're like, okay, well, I don't even want to read it. I don't even want to start because I know I have so much work to do.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes that can be so discouraging to want to work on yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think social media Christians are some of the harshest, toughest people to appease. And so it's like, you almost just got to have boundaries. In the army of God, we do a terrible job of sometimes shooting our own and not getting a healthy gauge of like, where is someone on this journey? Like, what,
Right.
and am I judging superficially, right? Like what, she's awesome. Like Havandi is awesome. But where people were judging because like she wears black, like she wears black and she like.
She's in a transition in her life. She came from one area and now she's
Right.
coming to a completely different area in her life. That's
Right.
going to take some time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And she's a sweetheart. I love what her and her husband are doing. Yeah.
A lot of people are so concerned with what other people think. And I think if you just really focus on how Jesus sees you, you really don't care what other people say about you. And I think the cool kid in school was always the kid that didn't care what you thought. And I think people will have to like kind of grow into this mentality. And don't forget, just because somebody says that they're Christian doesn't mean they're Christian. They could be a wolf disguised as a sheep trying to tear our own people down, right? So I don't even want to shine too much light on those people because one, if they are Christian, then they're definitely broken. We should pray for them. And then two, I'd rather focus on the positive. There was obviously so many good comments. I could go through my feed and look at bad comments, but I love looking at the good ones and seeing what I'm doing. I think you just need to fix your focus.
That's good.
This new direction I'm taking, I wanted to just talk to you about it because it's very new, but I've been seeing like great success. It's been the past like maybe 3 years, maybe a year and a half. How I go into a problem now is, for example, if I'm talking about my temper or my behavior or my lust or my anything like this, I used to search for the answers and then ask God to come with me. And through that, I was either falling into like, oh, this is a sign, or like, oh, blah, 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 I read this and I'm bending his word to fit my need. And like, I realized that waiting on the Lord is so much more pleasant. So what I've been doing, and this seems like it's lazy, but it's truly not because I know how to work. So it kind of comes hand in hand. And it's a little hard for me to explain because I never really said this, but if I have a problem, I'll give you an example. Me and my mother were having these moments where we're bumping heads because she sees more Catholicism. I see more Christian stuff. And so we were getting into it. And it became the person that I love talking to, we would get into head bumps with. And like, it was so bad. I couldn't even have conversations with my mom anymore. And I was always trying to fix it. And for some reason, the way I was trying to fix it, I would accidentally throw more gasoline on the fire. And but in my mind, I'm like, no, God sees the way I'm trying to handle this. Like I'm trying, but I keep failing. And this is the one of them I could use as an example. I had a problem. I didn't know how to fix it. And I went to the Lord. I said, I give this to you. I'm putting this at your feet. I need you to change this man and make me the man that you're pleased with. Take my feet where you want them to be, not where I want them to be. And I just waited. And now waiting is the toughest part. Because this is where all the demons come at you and they tell you their opinions and what they think you should do and what you should do and all this stuff. But I sat there and I was patient. And I think a lot of people want to just jab at God and they just want to talk. But when you're quiet and you have faith and you said, no, I'm waiting here on the Lord. I know he's going to come and take me from the situation. So I'll sit here. And one time I waited for so long that I called Cliff and I go, Cliff, I'm waiting a little bit. What do you think I should do? He says, brother, sing. So I would just sit there, and I know it sounds stupid, but I freestyle. And my freestyle would just be giving glory to God. God, you're handling this situation. I already know it. You know what? Thank you, because right now I don't fully believe, but you're still going to do it because you are the God that fulfills his word. And I'm sitting here, and I would the first day was tough. The second day was a lot easier. The third day was so much easier. All of a sudden, I'm started walking around, and I programmed my mind. It's not me, it's him. I'm waiting. He's the superhero.
Come on.
I'm not the superhero.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm reading the word. And then now the word is speaking to me like it's speaking to me the way that you're speaking to me. And I'm realizing, oh my goodness, it had nothing to do with my mother. It had to do with my behavior.
Wow.
I can't fix something that I didn't even know I had the issue with. But when you sit patiently and you wait for the Lord to show up and be your God, and you give him full submission to your life, he could work your heart and your hands and your feet. So then when I approached my mom, and in my imagination, my mom was coming to me being like, son, you're so right. I found this, I found that. The truth is, I came and humbled myself and said, Mom, I had no right speaking to you this way. The reason I want to speak to you because I was scared about this, this, and this. And when I spoke to her this way, she heard me.
Your mom is an immigrant? Like she was born over what country?
Iraq.
Okay. And I think what you're getting at is there's a deeper principle here in terms of like honoring your mother and father and speaking to them in ways that are like respectable and hospitable that I think is often lost, especially if someone's smart and they're having their own encounter with Jesus, right? Yeah. So my mom grew up, she's the kind of similar like Orthodox streams and stuff. Yeah. But she was an alcoholic. She fell out in our relationship. And right before my YouTube popped off, dude, we had this crazy reconciliation that the Lord did in that. It's the same thing of like honoring her unlocked something in like the supernatural that didn't make sense. And what happened was my mom and I were estranged because I asked my dad what happened and he told me. And so then I went from being resentful towards my dad to now I'm like kind of resentful.
If you don't mind me asking, what age did you pivot?
So I had that like confrontational conversation. Like I confronted my dad when I was like late 20s. Like I think I was already married or about to get married at that point. And I was like, what happened? And he tells me the whole story. And your mom made it very difficult. And it wasn't like he like apologized or repented, but it just allowed me to humanize him. And our relationship got better.
Understanding.
Yeah. And then my relationship with my mom got worse. She got worse in terms of the alcoholism. She had really bad hips. Like both hips needed to be replaced, and she didn't want to do it. And what happened was, the 2 weeks before the pandemic, when everything shut down, she came home. She has these little Chihuahua dogs, and one of the dogs ran up under her, and she fell and busted and broke her shoulder really bad. I'm talking like if I showed you guys these X-rays, they're awful. And she had no one to call. She's literally on her back, had no one to call. And at this point, we weren't really talking. Like she couldn't come over because she would be drunk or she had sketchy dudes. And I was like, I can't bring her around my family. So she falls, and the only person she has to call is me. And so she's like, I need you to take me to the emergency room. So I come, take her to the emergency room. Her house is just horrid, like didn't take care of her house, just completely let herself go. And bro, within the coming months, we got her health insurance. We got her the surgery for the shoulder. They discharged her because it was COVID. So it was like a really gnarly reconstructive surgery. So they discharged her the day of the surgery, which they weren't supposed to do. So she comes and lives with me, and she's forced to detox off of alcohol. She quit smoking cigarettes. And so I remember finding myself in like a really like, oh my gosh, this is a hard place to be. But through like, I'm going to love my mom and I'm going to be present and I'm going to do everything I can. Like I literally stopped everything, and it was COVID. So there was nothing I could even do. I couldn't travel. And I spent months just kind of being her caretaker, if you will, taking her on walks. And bro, within that year, we ended up getting both of her hips fixed. She's been clean and sober for 4 years now.
Amen.
She went to church with me on Easter. And now, my mom was never active. She's sending me pictures of her at the gym.
Wow.
Doing her
amazing, doing a
little thing. And subsequently, and I'm not saying this is like a 1-for-1, like if you do this, God will bless you. I'm not saying like that, but I think the principle is true. Right around the same time, my YouTube explodes. It was almost like a direct correlation of like, if I honor my mother and I love my mother, despite the fact that she's done things to hurt me, but I love her, God just unlocked something in my heart for her. And now, like, dude, our relationship is better than it's ever been. Me and my dad are reconciled better than we've ever been. And again, it's not like we ride off into the sunset and everybody's loving Jesus and everything's perfect, but like, it is so much better than it was 5 years ago, dude.
And can I just say, it's so interesting, this part of, so this happens with your mom, right? She gets into an accident, she has to go to surgery. You don't have a good relationship with her. You're forced to spend every day with her. And you could look at it 2 ways. You could either focus on the negative and you could be like, this sucks. My life is being interrupted. I don't get along with this person. Oh, this is hard. And all that would do, the situation would continue to be hard. Mm-hmm. But because you took it and you made the best out of it and you said, you know what? Obviously, this is my mom. I love her. I want to take care of her. And you took the time to be patient with her, understand her. And within that bad obstacle that was presented in your life, God was able to take a bad obstacle and turn it good because you were positive in it and you didn't let the darkness like overtake everything. And so within that, something that was really bad ended up being the best thing for your life because you had all this time to understand your mom, talk to your mom, and like heal that.
That's right.
Which is so beautiful.
And this is on the other side of praying for her to get clean for a decade. On the other side of begging her to stop drinking, begging her to stop smoking, begging her. And then like it was literally like within a year, the Lord just like, I mean, she had no choice. Like she was in the hospital. She had 3 surgeries in 1 year to get everything fixed. And she had another shoulder surgery. And it's wild when God will just do something that you've been praying for, you know? And now I'm like, dude, like, and I'm like, I think she loves Jesus now.
Right.
Like, cause she like is down to come to church and she's clean and she has friends in her life. Her landlords are Christians. So they're always talking to her about God. And it's just cool. And like, had you told me this 5 years ago, I would have been like, dude, you're insane. Like my mom's so far gone. There's no way this is going to happen, you know? And it happened.
And the solution never comes how you think it's going to come. It doesn't look the way you think it's going to look. Yeah. And so that's why it's so important to treat your obstacles as if, okay, this is something that can shape and change my life and I can learn from this.
Yeah. And it came through adversity. It came through suffering. I mean, there were some really dark moments of my mom being in my living room and not being able to go to the bathroom and having to have one of those portable toilets there. There were times of like, having to clip her toenails, like having to clean up her disgusting house because the dogs left poop everywhere and my eyes are watering, like because of the smells and the like there was some really dark times. And now it's like, dude, like if I showed you her house, the before and after just of her home, like it's like a whole nother home. Like her home is like clean. And the grace of God is like, this is like a different layer. And I'm not trying to like make myself the hero of the story, but like the grace of God to be in a financial situation to 100% hold down all of her bills. Like I'm in a spot where like she doesn't worry for anything financially. She has her own debit card to one of our accounts and she just goes and pays her rent and gets her food and whatever she needs, like it's just taken care of. And that's like a cool thing to like have a mom that was a single mom struggling, suffering, and then to come full circle and be like, you're good. Like you don't need to worry about if you're going to get SSI or disability. Like you're good, like you're set, you're good, you know? So yeah.
Sorry. Dang, bro. Sorry. I'm trying not to get emotional on a podcast. When you said that they prophesized over you and you were going to preach to millions, unfortunately, the ones who usually go out and do the most for God had to go through the most for God. And just picturing, you know, the sexual assaults, the parents that were abusive, that life where it feels unsafe. And you guys both described it in darkness. And I just see just a little glimpse of just like a mustard seed of light that you held on to. And the darkness it could not survive in it. And the more and more it kept growing in your home, now when people are on their iPhones and they get to go through that and they don't, dude, you didn't get that. You know what I mean? You didn't get to look at a phone and listen to somebody like you in that home that you had. And I think you're going to make a lot of people that live that life feel a lot more safe, and you're going to give them that light that they could hold on to, that then them themselves could go and light up their own families and light up their own homes and their own communities. And it's just these are the stories that, bro, like that I love to hear and I love to like talk about, because all we want to do is talk about war or conflict. But these stories, these are the stories that I would love to go around the fire and talk about, because I'm just so proud of you, man. Like it really is something admirable to see. Like that's a tough pill to swallow, and I'm so happy that you have that medium where you get to go talk, because people want to cop out and say, "No, you don't understand," but you understand, and you made it out of it. So,
man, well, I thank you for that, and I do feel like there's something in the air on a cultural level. Like there seems to be a shift happening.
Oh, I've been saying this
with like macro, you know,
like like the kids are like hungry for Jesus.
Something, man.
I've been saying this.
Yeah.
Something. It's something. I'm watching the type of folks that are getting saved behind the scenes that are like about to come out. I'll kind of tell you some of those folks are that I'm connected with that are like, him? Like, yeah, him, you know? And then you're seeing, like I just heard Jordan Peterson speak in South Carolina. And by the way, I loved your conversation with him. I was like, man, that's fire. Do you love Jesus? And so like, even hearing him from your conversation to where he's at now, it was like, his talk was like as if he just wanted everyone to believe in God. Like it's the weirdest thing. And then his wife, Tammy, super sweet, on fire for the Lord. And so I'm like seeing all of these different, what you guys are doing. There's so many different people that are like Russell Brand, you know, that are like unapologetic about their faith and unapologetically messy about their faith. Like they're going to show you the scars and walk through.
It's like real.
It's real, man.
You could tell that it's not fake. You could feel it. And I think what it is, man, is like we were in such a dark place. They say there's no atheist in a foxhole. And I think that we have a lot of trouble right now. And I think people are repenting. And what happened, the beautiful thing about like what you said, the struggle is you at some point have to come to God. And when you see God work, it's really hard to forget about it because you tried so hard by yourself. And then when all of a sudden everything just perfectly just starts lining up, you're like, okay, dude, there's something that's here that's working in my life.
Well, I think even, I mean, your guys' podcast, like the testament of what this has become, you know, where I could imagine the fear you had going out on your own and all the uncertainty. And then we look up and within a matter of, I mean, you guys have only been doing this for a year-ish?
Yeah, a year and a half now?
A year and a half-ish, yeah. And it's like one of the biggest podcasts out there, right? Like,
Thank you,
and it's like you being faithful to step out and go, everyone's trying to do this. I'm going to go the opposite direction. And I'm going to double down. I'm going to talk about my faith more. And I'm going to, like, it's incredible, man.
I wish it was something like as heroic as that, like where I'm like, I'm going to show them. But it really was me being out here for 10 years, giving it my all, and then going through things that I wouldn't even put my enemies through. And when I came out of it, I was like, God got me out of this. So I don't care if it makes anybody uncomfortable. I'm going to give this one last go, but with him. And I'm watching windows, not doors, like fly open, bro. And I'm looking around and I'm having people that do not believe in God being like, bro, there has to be, God's working with you. And so when people give me that compliment, I trust me, bro. Like the old me would have been like, yeah, dude, like, yeah, this is like, but it's really, bro. Like
it seems like it's genuinely the Lord.
It's
like
all
the Lord
him,
just
bro.
breathed on
it's
this.
All him. If this show fails, it's because I got an ego or I thought of myself more than I am. But you know, the biggest blessing about this podcast for me is like how I have to hold myself accountable, man. Like, because if you grow in front of people, you have to keep growing or they'll call you out. And like when I had that Logan thing happen and I came out and I was like an arrogant man, like, yo, we'll have your attorneys call. And just having people.
I saw you took that down right away.
Immediately because of my audience.
I saw it and I was like, and then I went back to look at it and I was like, oh, it's gone. I was like, that's good.
Gone because
I didn't even watch it. Like I just started it and then it was gone. And I was like, good.
It was a quick up and down because like my audience kept me in check and they said, hey, that's your old behavior. And when I saw that, I was like, I could either run from this and be like, no, they don't know me, bro. They can't be in my shoes. If they were gonna handle this life, then God would have gave it to them. That arrogant, like. But the truth is, like, I couldn't even handle it, and I gave it to God. So I am acting like the old me. That's like arrogant.
So, question for you guys.
Yeah.
When are you guys getting married?
we're about to pick a date. We're not gonna mention what it is, but we are. We've noticed that we've been slowing down because of the. This is what happened. You know, this is actually really fun. I'm glad you brought this up. I told God when I couldn't afford to get married, I said, God, you give me a career where I could afford it, I'll get married immediately. But then my job got so successful and I got so busy that I'm like, all right, okay, well, let me just finish this and we'll do this and we'll finish this. And I was like, what a piece of crap I am, bro. I literally promised God that I would get it done. And now because of the rewards he's given me, because he never fails me, but I fail him, that I pushed it back. And so now we're taking it very seriously.
So it's just you guys are just busy and like want to do a big ceremony for everybody?
As soon as we got engaged, I mean, life was literally insane. I think we were home maybe 2 days out of that month, and so it was just like thing after another and after another.
We didn't even get to celebrate it.
Like, no, we never even really like afterwards. But I mean, we get to celebrate every day together, so it's fine. But and then we've been in Arizona, and now we just got back, so now we get to visit venues, and once we visit our venues, then we get to pick the date. Easy as that.
My problem is I see us that we're married already, so like that's
that's what I was gonna get to.
That's bad, huh?
That's what I was gonna get to.
Okay, come on with the word. Right. He had it flipped to the page.
Yeah, buddy, we already have it open.
So, have you guys ever went through like the entire book of 1 Corinthians?
No,
you guys would love it. Okay.
I don't know about you.
I'm going to try to give you guys a quick summary, okay? And I guess you can keep as much of this as you want. Okay, so Corinth, port city, metropolitan, booming. Think this is like a modern day Los Angeles almost, if you think about it, right? So they are not the most mature in their faith, but nevertheless, Paul keeps affirming them in their faith, right? So the first couple chapters of Corinth, they're stuck in the cult of personality. Some guys are following Apollos, some guys are following Paul, some guys are following Peter, and Paul is like, no, like you guys got it all wrong, right? Like don't do that. It's about Jesus. I'm glad I didn't baptize you. It's about Jesus. So he's like laying this out. Chapter 3, he gets into basically saying like, because you guys are so into personalities and status, like you're worldly, you're not drinking meat yet. I'm still giving you milk, right? Then he gets into chapter 5. In chapter 5, 6, and 7, some gnarly stuff is happening in Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 5 is one of the gnarliest chapters where you basically find out, Paul says a dude in the church is sleeping with his stepmom. Or his father's wife, it says. So hopefully it's his stepmom, and it's not something worse than that.
Sounds I know it sounds disrespectful, but it sounds like the porn videos that everybody's like.
It's, bro.
So like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just saying that they're coming after the same hearts. Yeah, well, it's very parallel to America today, and specifically, they're sexually liberated. Their God is their stomach. Their God is their sexuality. Like, so then he gets into this, and in 1 Corinthians 5, he like really rails this down, and he's like, listen, expel the wicked from among you. Like, it's not your job to judge those in the world. Like, you confront the person in the church. You judge those in the church. And then 1 Corinthians 6, he basically goes on to say, like, they're suing each other and they're petty and they're all this stuff. He's like, don't do that. Like, that's a bad look on the gospel. Can't you just figure this stuff out on your own? And then he goes on to say, like, sexually immoral people, fornicators, adulterers, yada, 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 won't inherit. But this is how you were. So even though they're dealing with remnants of sexual morality, it says that this is who you were. You're not this anymore, right? And then this is the verse that is really interesting, where he gets into instructions on Christian marriage, 1 Corinthians chapter 7. So I'm going to read this to you guys. Let's go.
Now to the unmarried and the widows, I say this, right? And so there's a lot of widows in the church at the time. The church would take care of the widows. It is good for them to stay unmarried as I do. But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry. And this is the principle. For it is better to marry than to burn with passion. Mm-hmm. So he's basically saying, look, if you are passionate for each other, if you have sexual desires for each other, don't continue being how the world is. Might as well just go get married. Like you might
No, I know that. Yeah. But here, again, I hope I don't get smoked for this. But there's so many Bible verses. Like there was a guy who I wish I knew it from my heart, but there was a guy who like made it final by just going into a tent and having sex with her, and that was like his marriage. Mm-hmm. I think it's because we had sex, that covenant's already there, regardless if like I have a priest like fulfill it or not. Mm-hmm. I feel like because we already have that covenant, we became one. Mm-hmm. That I'm just honoring her like my wife. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, sometimes like when I introduce her, I'll introduce her as my wife.
I've heard you do that before.
Yeah, and it's because I told God, I go, God, like I've already made that mistake. So I'm not sitting here waiting for her to be my wife. I took what wasn't mine yet. Mm-hmm. I already have permission from her father. Mm-hmm. And I've given you my promise. Mm-hmm. As of right now, I am married to her. Mm-hmm. In your eyes, I feel. Mm-hmm. And then I will also get married the way that it should, so I could be a good example of what you have to be married. Mm-hmm. I think that's my problem of why I kept pushing it back, is because we live just like husband and wife. Mm-hmm. And so I think what happened is, like, again, like this is always my issue. My ego thinks my wisdom is like, okay, we're already married, so it's fine. Mm-hmm. And so we could just keep pushing it back. But it's dishonest, because if I'm representing Christ, then I should represent how the church represents marriage. Yeah. So I know I'm wrong.
Yeah. How, do you feel like you're his wife?
I mean,
I won't look at you. You can answer.
No, I do. That's the thing, because like how Georgie and I's relationship, we've always, and thankfully, honestly, because of his like he's led our relationship this way. We've involved God in our relationship since the very first day that we started dating. And so because of that, he's always shown me, he's always treated me like his wife, if that makes sense. Like his actions from him dating me to then him being engaged to me didn't all of a sudden change where he's like, oh, well, now I look at you, my wife, so now I'm going to start acting like a man. He always has. So once we made that promise to God, we made that promise to my family, we made that promise to his family, and we announce it, you know what I mean? We see each other like, okay, in the eyes of God, like, you know what I mean? We are one. Yeah. We are married, you know? Yeah. And so, but of course, like a ceremony and having a wedding is something that's very important to me. I know it's something that's very important to him, and it's something that we very much so look forward to. But I will say that in that sense, you know, I have so much to learn still. My relationship with God is still so new. And as Georgia said, you know, and I think this is a great way of putting it, like, I'm a baby when it comes to my relationship with my walk with Jesus. Yeah. And there's so much I need to learn when it comes to like our covenant and marriage. And so when we got engaged, in my mind, I was like, well, I want us to take our time because I don't want you to be stressed. I don't want to be stressed. We have so much work going on and I want you to enjoy every bit of it. And so I think took that and I was like, let's take our time. But then there's so many things I have to learn in the sense that it's like, well, no, like there should be more of an urgency. Like we need to be married so that we are, you know, in right standing, even though we feel like we're in right standing. I know that there are some things that we need to do in order to be fully in right standing, right? Yeah. So
the heart is deceitful, right? And my deceitful heart made it seem. I keep putting my foot there. And
you're good. I can move my foot.
No. It's because you're a Bible. I don't want my foot to be towards your Bible. I think what happened is like because I see us as like we're married, and like she just said, like I was leading the relationship with faith. But I poisoned it because I put my own worldly needs there. So I corrupted it. So it's not like I'm like, I found a loophole and now we're married. It's me just with like shame on my face. Like I failed as a leader. I took what wasn't mine yet. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that I was right. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that responsibility. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like, I love that you guys are living this in front of the whole world so that you're like, I'm new to this thing, dude. Like I'm still figuring out. And you guys, like, even with the Girls Gone Bible episode and you being vulnerable about like language and all these things, like there's a refreshing authenticity that I think you guys have that I think is so good in the sense of like you being willing to walk in front of the whole world. And that can't be easy. I think the flip side to that is like kind of what you already said, right? Like in the eyes of our society and our culture, we tend to have a low view of the symbolism of a ceremony, a low view of the symbolism of coming before a man, a priest, a pastor, whatever capacity. And so then we end up, because you guys are functionally living like a married couple, like practically you live together, you sleep in the same bed, right? You're doing all the things. And so
not at my parents' house though.
Good.
I'm not allowed, no, I'm dead ass not allowed to.
Yeah. No,
like, I'm not allowed to. Yeah. Like you don't understand. Like I'm not allowed to. Like even that we're engaged, if we spent the night there, I have to sleep in the living room and she sleeps
in the living room. That's good.
But I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's cute. I don't know.
Well, because I think there's a reverence you have for your parents, and there's probably a expectation they have for you.
Yeah.
And so I think like in any stream of Christianity, Orthodoxy, Syrian Church of the East, Oriental Orthodox, Catholicism, Protestant, in any stream of Christianity, they're going to look at you guys as maybe you're functionally living, but there should be some sort of ceremony or something done, in my opinion, in the interim. Like,
and there is.
Like find
over my dead body, will I not have a full wedding? And I think that's the thing. No. As a girl, you get stuck because I'm like, I want it to be perfect and I want it to be everything my dreams. And then it's like, well, hold on. I need to do what's right with God, and I need to get on it so I can do the things that God needs me to do.
Can I give you guys my advice? Can I speak into this? So my advice would be plan the wedding of your dreams. Like do everything you guys are going to crush it. It's going to be beautiful, right? But I would recommend and pray about it. Actually, don't pray about it. I would recommend do something that with a pastor that where you exchange vows and you solidify that you're married before God, before a pastor, a priest, whoever
we've thought about this.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
Honestly, I think it's something we should do.
I know.
And here's the reason why. Is because I hate the guilt of it.
Yeah.
I hate the guilt of it. And also it's like, I think what happened in our life is that we're trying to please everybody. Mm-hmm. That we're like failing God.
There's so many variables, I think, to this and like of everyone in our lives. And even for me, like personal family members where
expectations.
Oh, here she is. No. Get it. Yo, I cried on this podcast. You have to.
I cry every podcast.
You have to, or I'm gonna look so dumb.
No, sorry. No, but like,
I really don't know what you're saying.
I don't know. Okay,
I love you so much.
Okay. Like, for me, even like personal relationships I have with family members where there was certain things going on that stopped me, for moving forward in certain areas because I felt like things weren't in right standing with certain family. And so I was like, oh, I can't move forward yet because it doesn't feel right, not moving with this person. But there's always going to be something in the way, there's always going to be like so much things going on, right?
I know what you're talking about.
So regardless of anything, it's interesting we're having this conversation now because, it's something that was been in my heart for like a few weeks now where I've thought, because we talked about this before, we're like, should we just have, like a private, ceremony with a priest so we can be fully in right standing with God and then we can plan the wedding of our dreams. We talked about that, but then we're like, I don't know, do we want to do that? Do we want to save that for the real thing? All that stuff. And then last few weeks I've been thinking about it hard because I personally have had my own conversations with God and where I felt like, okay, that is something I need to do because if we're going to continue to, be together as we are being together, then I need to make sure that I don't know, explain it. It's like once and once you know what you're doing is wrong, then it's like, how can I turn a blind eye to that and then keep coming to God and being like, well, Lord, like help me with this and help me with this and be there with me through this and make sure that this doesn't happen. But then it's like, well, am I doing my part? Am I making the sacrifice? And no, Yeah. And so
I didn't know you were feeling this way. So was I.
Really?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I just, that whole thing about me making like a promise to God and not fulfilling it has been eating me up like crazy. I think it's because we weren't going to announce this, but we're about to get our dream home. And
congrats, bro.
When I walked in it, I felt super guilty, cool. Bro. Because like I would literally dream about this type of house. And I always knew that I was going to be married when I walked into this house. So not fully being married, I was just kind of like, man, this sucks. Not on his part, on my part. Like if I was a partner with somebody and they kept, like you said, you have that like that feeling when somebody says they're going to do something and they don't, it rages you. It's like I would be outraged if the amount of times I did that to my God, if my partner did that to me. I don't think I would be able to even handle it.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
Well, I was just gonna say. I think sometimes we'll buy into this deception that like we need to spend so much time planning the wedding that we overlook building the marriage and building the marriage on a healthy foundation. And me and my wife, we crossed boundaries, and I could tell you guys like there was consequences to that. Of like not doing it God's way, all the way. But that doesn't mean there's not grace and there's not mercy, and I think you guys are in a position where you know that when you do things God's way in a practical sense, the supernatural release of that. Like we talked about the honoring the mother and father, right? Yeah. Like, listen, I'm just going to honor my I can't speak to my mom that way. And
it's above our understanding.
Yeah, and you do it, and then like something like kind of unlocks, and you're like, whoa. And not to mention like the weight of the shame and the guilt is lifted, and you're like, oh man, this is that way. And so I think you guys are in a spot where outside of like you being massively influential to a lot of people, and how beautiful that would be to be like, hey, we're going to have a ceremony, but like in the interim, we decided to get married because we want to honor God with our bodies, and our bodies are the temple of God, and we're going to do it in a way that glorifies God. I think your parents would probably love that as well, even though they may not be at the ceremony and right? And I think it would be optimal for your own spirituality, like where you are with Jesus. I think it'd be good, and I think you guys would appreciate it.
You want to do that?
I do. And what's crazy is that before, why I was not for the idea is my own, like worldly pride of like, well, I don't know. I feel like then is the moment going to not be as special? Like when we have like the full wedding with everyone standing in front of us, like I wanted to feel as when we're standing in front of each other, I wanted to like, keep that specialness. Like if we do it now and then we do it again later, as if we redo it later, is it kind of fake when we redo it? And it's kind of fake in front of everyone. And then is that going to not feel as special? But then that's just a stupid doubt when I know that it's like, if I follow what God wants me to do, he's going to make it 10 times folds, a million times folds better than what it was. And he's shown us this so many times. And yet, you know, we continue to doubt because we're human and we do that. But it's just funny because that was my fear, that I was like, I didn't want to take away from that special moment by taking away. But it's like, well, maybe it's going to end up being a million times more special because we'll get to have that. And, you know what I mean, have it again later.
I agree 100%. I think we just the devil kept us preoccupied.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to fail my mom. I got to make sure this is happening. Oh, you got to make sure that your family thing's going. I'm like, okay, well, make sure we have to plan it because of the work. Oh, we're so busy. How can we put this down? And it's just like, I made a promise to God and I failed us. So
you did not fail us.
100% I did, because I guarantee you, if I would have picked a day, you would have came. God didn't look at you.
Yeah, but I told you that I wanted to find the venue in order to have the date.
But God doesn't look at you and say you failed it. If I'm gonna take the road of leadership, then I have to be the one to be like, nah, we're sinning against God. This has to be done. So this was all of my fault.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's not all of your fault.
Bruce,
you
who's
were
wrong?
trying to please me.
Ultimately, he's the head.
Thank you.
So I think that it's ultimately his responsibility. If fault is an interesting word, right? But it is your responsibility. Everything that happens.
Well, it is your fault that you're hot and I couldn't keep my hands off you. That's your fault.
But I also the fact that like you wanted to please my wishes, and the fact that I said I was like, no, I need to find the venue first, because then once we find the venue, they give us the date, because sometimes you can't pick the date. You know what I mean? If the venue's available. So like you were trying to please me so I could find the right venue, like, you know.
And by the way, we can have everything that your heart desires. I just think that we get to the church steps, and then, you know, it's so funny, circling back to everything we talked about, we search the kingdom first, right? We finish what we promised him. And I think everything that our heart desires will fall underneath that.
Amen.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at you, dude. Yeah. Yo, the Girls Gone Bible might have cleaned my mouth, but you just cleaned my covenant.
Well,
I think that's a lot stronger,
I was going to say, I don't know how often you guys are here versus Arizona. I have an amazing Armenian pastor friend of mine that's local.
Under my mom's rules and regulations, she has to pick it. You know, my best friend, dude, this is actually kind of crazy. And I've been dreaming about telling this story, bro. My best friend, great guy, for sure burning in hell one day. Like he bro, this dude is not a good human being, but he's also the best human being. But one of the things that we would always joke about is that he was just not even super atheist, bro. Like just at all realms blasphemous. Like if I was in high school and I would pray over my meal, he would whisper in my ear, "Go ahead, my child, you're allowed to." Like, oh my God. Bro, like he was just this demon. But for some reason, like I knew that this kid is like has a great heart.
He didn't know any better, and he thought it was funny.
Nah, he's just an amazing dude. And my mom told me, she goes, you know, Kaveh can't be your best man. And bro, like I've never fought for anything. Like, okay, you want the priest, fine. If you want this, fine. Everything she says, fine. But I stood on my business and I looked at my mom and I said, no. I go, I don't believe in this. This doesn't make any sense to me. I go, that is my best friend that's been through so much with me. I go, that's the only thing I'll stand on. And she said, that's not me, that's God. You have to take it up with him. And then I had a conversation with this man who's very knowledgeable of the gospel, and he convinced me that what my mom to say is true.
But wait, you're missing that part of like, why is it that he can't be your best man?
He's not baptized.
There you go.
Yeah, he's not baptized. And sorry, I forgot. Sorry, because it was such an emotional thing for me. And but recently, this past year, he's been asking me questions about Jesus. So it got me really angry when they asked me to go tell him, hey, no, like, you can't. I cried about it, and she knows, bro, because I was like, if I tell this to him, he's going to completely walk away. Because it's not a welcoming thing. It's like very judgmental. It falls down in the same category of why people don't like Christians or Catholics. And I just started shaking, and I started crying, and I'm like, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I can't be the reason why this guy turns the door down. And like, no, I don't want to do this. So I came in there with a positive attitude, just laughing. I use comedy to deflect. I was like, hey, listen, bro, like we're holding up the ceremony. We're going to figure it out. I'm getting an attorney. We're going to get a loophole. Like I'm going to talk to Michael about this. Like, you know, just making jokes. And he's like, oh, why can't I? I was like, oh, it's because you're not baptized. Still slinging jokes. And he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, you're not upset? And he goes, no, man. He's like, if this is what your mom wants, like, and again, right there, like, what a best friend, right? Like, didn't make me stress out more, didn't put it on me. And I was on my way to basketball. Like, about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and I'm driving and I'm having a terrible day, bro. That's why I'm gonna go play basketball, literally just to get my and I'm just angry, bro. I am angry, bro. And when I'm angry, I like to be alone and I sit there and meditate so I don't make any stupid decisions. I'm angry and I get a call from my friend. And I almost reject it because I'm like, I don't want to talk to my friend when I'm angry. And but I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. That's stupid. So I answered the phone and I go, hey man, what's up? And he goes, how you doing? I'm like, I'm having the worst day. I was like, how you doing, man? He's like, good. He goes, I just wanted to let you know I'm getting baptized.
Get out.
Bro.
Wow.
When I was on the basketball court and my best friend told me that, I just broke down, sobbing my eyes out. And I was like, wait, like, bro, like, you can't just do this because you're going to be like my best man. Yeah. And he goes, nah, I sat here and I thought about it. If I had to worship a God, I just think that Jesus has to be God. And bro, I hate to say this in front of Belle, that for sure beat my wedding day. like, I thought my wedding day was going to be the greatest day of my life, dude. I can't tell you, bro, even talking about it, like having my best friend get baptized, like, I think people don't understand what it feels like because people think that we're judging other people for not knowing who God is. But when you see it from our lens, we just see dead people walking. And the closer you are to Christ, the more alive you feel. So, like, we're not judging you. We're trying to, like, do everything we can so you could be with us in paradise. And
that's beautiful.
And when my best friend told me that, man, like, it made me realize two things. Stop fighting God, right? Because I was like, no, I'm going to find a loophole and I'm going to do this. And this is something that God, this is his law. Like, why am I trying to fight it to fit my needs? But when I stood up to my friend and I was like, hey, like, I put him in a position to be like, you should really reflect on this. Like, is this something, and it's so meaningful, is this something you really want to do? Sometimes the hard road that you don't want to take, if you know what's on the other end of that road, you would run through that road because you got to stop putting God in a box. And
yeah. Well, can I just, we've gone, I don't know how long this is, but this is an amazing conversation. Can I just leave you guys with my heart for three things for you guys?
Yeah, please.
Okay, outside of get married, please. The second would be invest in your marriage. Like, outside of the wedding day, like, invest in your marriage. It's interesting that anything else in life that you have to do, drive a car, right? Like, start a business, like any of these other things, there's a degree of, you got to go through some sort of training. You got to go take some sort of test. You got to go through some sort of permit. And the two things that are the most important in life, which is who you marry and having kids, people just assume they're going to instinctually figure it out. And I'm just going to know how to be a great husband. I'm just going to know how to be a good dad. And that requires effort and practice, just like anything else.
I think, to be honest, brother, like, thank God I will admit when I'm on the wrong path, but when it comes to our relationship, I think is because we really put everything in God's hands. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do feel like we have the strongest relationship. We hang out with each other every minute, every day. We travel everywhere. We don't even get sick of each other. Like, because we hold ourselves accountable from how God would want us to behave, it keeps both of us in check. Yeah. And we definitely are going to bring that into our marriage for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I believe that. I just know sometimes seasons change, dynamics change.
Just keep that practice.
Keep that practice, but keep wisdom from outside of just your own knowledge, right? So that's like why I brought you guys like the two books that really did for us. And if you don't like them, you don't like them. But I would start and just see if they.
No, I mean, dude, it makes sense because I made a mistake, and if I would have read a book and like maybe like pivot my
it
direction.
helps. It helps, right?
I get what you're saying.
And then the second thing is I think it would be amazing. Because a lot of marriage, a lot of family is more caught than taught, right? So, like, even if you read a book, doing life with people who are a season ahead of you, 2 seasons ahead of you, right? Someone that has kids.
Mentorship.
Kids. Mentorship.
Oh, big, huge fan of it.
Mentorship in a local church context.
Got
it. A church you guys are
I have a hard time
to.
with church. This might be a whole different, like conversation.
Sure.
I think it's maybe because I have past relationships with corrupted churches, like from the one I went to or the new ones I come here. I truly haven't walked into a place where I'm like, they've figured it out. And maybe that's my issue, but like the Assyrian realms, like they come with such respect for God. Mm-hmm. They're not chewing gum. They're dressed appropriately. There's respect and fear, but they choose different things that I wouldn't choose because Christ says don't do that. And then I go over here, they're doing a lot of the things that God says, hey, you should do. And I'm wishing that my people would do that. But then they're chewing gum, they're swearing, they're joking around in church. And I'm like, yo, dog, you're in God's house right now. The fact that you guys are not shaking from his presence is like freaking me out. So I can't be here either. Yeah. So it's like I'm trying to find a home where that has the fear of God and the respect of God, but also doesn't dilute the word of God. Absolutely. And so I'm just on the hunt for that.
Yep. Well, again, I got a couple places locally and in Arizona that I'll come.
I would love to.
Yeah. So I got a great Armenian church that's local, and it's not like a Oriental Orthodox Armenian. It's like a bunch of just Armenians, and then they're around here, like literally local.
Is it a Catholic church though?
No, it's just like a regular Protestant evangelical church, and I think there's a good balance there. And then I told you one of my really close friends is planting a church in the Arizona area. I don't know what city exactly it's in, but he's planning a church there. But I think there's no such thing as a perfect church. Just like there's no such thing as
it's run by humans.
It's run by humans, right? And so like if I wish I could find a church that has the amazing like art of the Orthodox experience with the incense and the reverence and like all of that with the we're gonna go by the word, right? But like at the end of the day, I think being a part of the body is so crucial to just your development, because that is the institution that Jesus left behind. Like he set that up for us. And so that would be my heart for you guys. And just know that like I'm praying for you guys. There's a lot of people praying for you guys. You guys are being used in ways that I don't know if you fully grasp the magnitude of how God is using you and going to continue using you. And I just want to commend you guys on your vulnerability and your humility. Even in this conversation, like I didn't know how this was going to go. Like I was praying all morning for you guys, and I was like, God, I really hope they receive this well. And so
we're like, get up, get out.
Yeah, seriously. I was like, what if he kicks me out? You know. So I'm so excited for what the Lord's doing with you guys.
Thank you so much for all your kind words. Thank you for your gifts. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing with us, and even bringing wisdom to us in order to like better our life. Like seriously, thank you.
Yeah, I also would like to apologize because when I get excited, I talk too much, and you had me super excited this episode. So I feel like I would want to have you back so I could get to even know you even more and ask even more questions about you. You just set us on fire today, man. You came with that Holy Spirit, and you have us just jumping. So I really appreciate your time, man. I know you drove pretty far to come here, so I really appreciate that.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Next time, maybe we'll have you guys down for dinner.
No.
Meet the family.
Too far away.
90 minutes. 90 minutes. It's 90 minutes without traffic from here. Maybe 100 minutes, yeah. But I'd love you guys to come down and meet my family.
Of course. We would love Are you in San Diego still?
I'm in Vista, so I'm in the very tippy top of San Diego.
So farther.
Like, so Oceanside, Vista area. I'm not sure if you know where that is.
Yeah, it's beautiful over there.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah. We went to a church in San Diego that we absolutely loved.
What was the name of it? Do you remember?
Nope.
No, it's okay.
It was ran by
Pastor Leanne and her husband. Leanne preached that day, so I unfortunately don't remember the name of her husband because he didn't preach. So
I don't know, but that was a weird day though.
Yeah.
That was
a weird day, bro.
She is anointed. It was beautiful.
It was like I was in Arizona and I was like going through some situations. I kept feeling like something was about to happen, and I just sat there and I was like praying and praying. It was freaking me out, bro. And then all of a sudden, this very, very rich family randomly hits me up and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna send a jet. We got to come get you." But here's the thing. I see this man as a mentor because he has everything like a man could ever dream about, but he would throw it away in a second for Jesus. And so he's the richest man that fears Jesus. So I was like, this man could set people free, and he does. And so when he told me, yo, I got to come talk to you about something, I was like, absolutely. So he literally, like an IG model, pulled up in a jet, picked me up, brought me to San Diego, took me to church, and the woman was just preaching, and I just fell to my knees crying because it's like she heard what I was talking to God about and was just preaching it. And I'm getting goosebumps right now. But what that man is, his name's Robert, and I pray that I'm like that man. That guy has everything that the devil could want to give you on earth, but he just looks at it like he could collect dust because his eyes are in heaven, like
that's fire.
Nobody's business. But
that's fire.
Dude, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I really hope that we could do this again.
Of course.
We have a special podcast coming. I'm not going to get too much into it, but you're a part of it as well.
I'm super excited.
And dude, thank you so much for your time and your vulnerability. And
thank you guys. This was great.
I'm really proud of you, for real.
Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much.
Brother. Appreciate you.